All right, guys, what's up? Episode 249 of the Jiu-Jitsu podcast.
What's
We are
up?
here.
Yes, that's right. So, guys, today we're going to be talking with my nutrition and coach for getting more swole and sexy with my clothes off, Eli. And we're going to jump into it in just a second, real quick, while we're waiting for everybody to join up in the podcast. Wanted to go over and basically thank our sponsors for helping make this sucker happen. Big thanks to Charlotte's Web for helping make the podcast happen. If you guys have never tried CBD, I encourage you to go to their website, charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20, 20% off the order. And again, with any supplement, sometimes it takes a little bit for you to kind of get a feel for the effects. So I always encourage people, try it out for a month. I personally like it before bed as part of like a nighttime ritual. Some people like it during the day to sort of take the edge off. You can kind of play around with it and see what you think. But again, try it out at charlotteswebs.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off the order. Also, thanks to Matt at Epic Roll for helping support the podcast. If you guys are interested in getting some new gear or t-shirts or basically anything jiu-jitsu related, you can go to his website at epicrollbjj.com. He has everything from rash guards, shorts, hoodies, gis, I mean, everything there. And I really like his no-gi stuff. Typically, if you watch my videos, almost always you'll see me probably wearing either his stuff or there's like two other companies maybe I'll wear, but his stuff is the stuff that I wear most often. And it's why I partnered up with him last year to do a batch of jiu-jitsu gear for no-gi. We'll be doing that again here in the near future. In particular, I like his shorts. They don't have a Velcro like sort of strap, so you don't have that issue where the Velcro wears out, but then you have a perfectly good pair of shorts that you can't wear because they don't lock up anymore. But again, you can go to his website at epicrollbjj.com. If you like something you find, use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu to save 15% off the order. Also, if you guys want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to our Patreon, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Upon joining, you'll get access to a ton of exclusive content done with every one of the guests that we've had, including Eli, and every one of the guests that we've had. And when you join, you'll get a couple things, a couple bonuses. When you join, you'll get first, it's a seminar that I did several years ago where we go into gi and no gi stuff. You can't see it, but Eugene's taking off his shirt. And then we also go into, Eugene has a warm-up routine, sort of a muscle activation routine that targets specific muscle groups that jiu-jitsu practitioners have some trouble with. And again, he's a doctor of physical therapy plus a black belt in jiu-jitsu, knows how the body works. And he started doing that particular warm-up routine for a jiu-jitsu camp that I had at my gym a couple of years ago. And so that'll be included as well. You can get access to that again at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last but not least, if you guys do not get my daily email already, you can do so by going to my website at shujitsu.net/join, JOIN. And upon joining, you will get access to some exclusive ebooks that I give away. And then you'll also, from there, get access to the daily email that I send out to people that are on the subscription list, and you can unsubscribe at any time. But again, I send a lot of exclusive offers through that particular mode of communication a lot of times. And if you guys want to ask a question for the YouTube videos, that's generally the best way to do it, because a lot of other things get sort of basically bogged down with lots of messages. The email's a little bit easier. So guys, with that said, let's jump in here with Eli and let's talk about this. So real quick, before I get into it, I want to sort of frame everything. So back in 2020, just so you guys know where my relationship with Eli came about. So back in 2020, I was, coming out of the lockdown. Some of you guys maybe were still in the lockdowns, and I was looking around and I was kind of getting a bit more round, snuck up on me a little bit more round than I would have liked to be, And so I was like, man, I want to get a little bit leaner. But the problem was when I was younger, like my way of getting lighter was simply just like taking out like a lot of food. And so you typically would feel like crap. Like when I was cutting weight for fights and stuff, it was like you do all this exercise, you're just cutting weight, you feel like crap, everything else. And so I was like, I want to hire someone that maybe is like super knowledgeable about how all this stuff works. And plus I was thinking about doing some bodybuilding style lifting because, for lack of a better term, I just wanted to look a bit better with my clothes off. So I hired Eli because I was looking at his page and he had all these like soccer moms and like regular people that he was helping. He had some athletes too, but he also had regular people mixed in there. And I was thinking, well, if he can help those regular people, what can he do for someone who like trains like all the time for a living? I was like, he probably could do something. And so I hired him. The results were amazing. He's worked with a ton of my students. And so I wanted to sort of share him with you guys and have him on the podcast. And so again, super knowledgeable about strength training, diet, and also he's done jiu-jitsu and done some other stuff like MMA fights and stuff. And then we will, towards the end of the podcast today, we'll do a Q&A where you guys can ask him questions. We'll also be giving away some prizes, such as some, we've got a new program that we're releasing. You get access to that, possibly if you win, some t-shirts, books, journals, things like that. And I'll be telling you guys later on about how you guys can win a chance to actually come and fly here. We'll pay for the flight, pay for the hotel and all that stuff. And you can come fly here and train with me and Eli in person, which can be pretty cool. So that'll be towards the end of the podcast. So buddy, thank you for being here.
Thank you, sir.
Big fella.
Yes, he's a large human.
He's not small.
I think he lifts. I think he works out a little bit.
So man, I'm curious. I don't, we've talked about this a little bit, but for the people watching, did you get into like martial arts training or lifting first?
Actually, I got involved with Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts first. It was Japanese Jujitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah. So through a group of guys with a Pancrase fighting veteran, Robert Steins. He fought in Pancrase in the World Combat League. You remember the Chuck Norris Federation?
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like full contact kickboxing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So trained with a group of those guys, and then moved around a little bit, trained some. It was actually that, like a bad an injury from that actually led me to get into bodybuilding.
What kind of injury did you have?
So I tore my hamstring. I actually tore it off the bone.
How'd you tear your hamstring?
In a fight.
Oh,
yeah. It was a sport jiu-jitsu fight. It was kind of like MMA and a gi.
okay.
Like Sambo, I guess.
It's kind of like combat Sambo. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like in the Japanese, they'll have like sport jiu-jitsu, and I mean you can grab the gi, use it like a hockey jersey. So it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I tore my hamstring.
But how did it happen? Like, what was like, were you just posting wrong or something, or a guy ripped your leg up or something?
Actually, really odd. Like my leg was a little bit tight.
Mm-hmm.
You get those little odd quirks, and you kind of overlook them. And threw a 2-piece and a leg kick, and I felt a click in the back of my leg. Ended up moving a little bit. I ended up getting the win, and I went over to sit down, and then my leg was just like really stiff. I was like, "Well, what's going on?" It was like a tournament style thing. So we got my leg to straighten out. I went back out, fought a second time, and a couple more times. Was able to pull out a win, but a month or two later, training again, and actually severed my ACL. I guess the imbalance that had created.
So did you not like have it looked at or repaired or anything?
Not at all.
Did you have all the crazy bruising and everything else?
Yeah, it was black on the back of my leg.
Okay.
Like
Did you have a knot?
I still do. Like
So,
it's like a golf ball size knot under
Here's
my
an
lid on this side.
here's an interesting thing, little physical therapy knowledge. So the hamstrings actually can help reinforce that ACL. So because where they attach at the shin, the ACL keeps the shin bone from coming forward.
Sure.
The ACL actually. So the hamstrings can help that, which is crazy, but like that's a very painful thing to go through.
Very much so. And I fought 2 or 3 more times that day with it torn, and then
That's insane.
with
Dude.
my hamstring
That you
torn.
could
And
actually like walk, stand. I mean, you see people a lot of times. It's typical. People are like sprinting. You see sprinters can
Yes.
tear it.
Yes.
And as soon as they do it, like they're like, and they
Yeah.
can't even extend their leg. They
done.
can't even like
A
run.
member of my gym was running with his son and did that.
I mean,
tore it.
you can happen, but like, dude, for you to do that, like, what was the? Did you know you were hurt and you're like, I just didn't care? What was the mindset there?
One, I was a kid. I was not nearly as educated as
How old were
I am.
you?
I didn't. Maybe 21, 22. Maybe.
Wow.
Um,
I mean, it's just crazy.
but I mean, I didn't understand the severity of what had happened.
Sure.
So I go on, I try just, whatever. I had no idea. So I just continued training, and the imbalance that created, and that hamstring no longer being there
Sure.
to keep, no kind of, to not assist that ACL and hold that femur over the tibia, it just severed my ACL training.
That's crazy.
And then I had no insurance, so that led me to have to wait a while and then get it done at a later time.
Yeah.
So then I went from being 190-ish down to like 160
Oh man,
or so. Oh, it's terrible.
tiny little dude.
Yeah. So but I was telling someone the other day, that's kind of giving me a different look too, because I've seen this on both sides, being heavy as a kid, and then the injuries being a little bit lighter from losing tissue and trying to build it back and stuff. So it sucks during the time, but it gave me a little bit of experience on both sides.
Yeah, it gives you a better perspective for the
Very
people
much
you
so,
work with,
yeah.
because you've been a big guy, you've been a small guy, and then you've been a big guy again, but this time like bigger with better composition.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's, I think it So that lead you to weightlifting and bodybuilding and all that?
Yeah. So the goal was there to build back the tissue that I had lost.
Okay.
So, unknowing, going into the gym, not really understanding things quite so well, thinking I knew how to lift because I tried to in high school, like a lot of people. And then later actually finding out that I had some sort of, a little bit of a
knack.
A knack for it. Yeah. And and then I moved away and found a gym that was actually owned by a professional bodybuilder. And I guess he may have seen something in me. We started working. He offered to coach me, and then since then I've worked with some really, really good coaches and continue to get educated on it. And
when you talk about like high school, like got into like lifting and stuff like that, what are some common mistakes that you see like maybe newer lifters make when they go into the gym? I mean, because like we talked about, like I remember like when we were filming the videos for the program, I remember we were talking about the one like when you're doing the squat, like the old football coach telling you to look up to the ceiling, right? Like where your neck's all out of position, and stuff.
And your spine just looks like a giant S.
Yeah.
Just
but are there any common ones that you see like when you work with people or when you see young guys or young women come in and start training?
I would honestly, if I'm taking somebody in that case, I would rather they've never lifted than to come from a background like that, because then you can teach them correctly from the beginning instead of trying to break through all these bad habits.
Sure.
In the beginning, honestly, one of the most common things you see with someone who's, if they've come from, taking an uneducated approach to it, is they don't consider the capacity. They consider they're overcompensating, thinking they're adding capacity. So like if I'm adding weight and I'm doing so while shortening the range of motion, I've not added capacity, I've added compensation.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is like a lot of people will get, and this is like a big issue, like what they'll call ego lifting, where, all right, let's say, we're hitting full range of motion and all these exercises, and then we start slapping more weight on there. And then we get much more focused on the weight, where, I mean, you see it all the time with squats where guys,
very much so,
guys will do like the little, like the little bro squat, little quarter squat, and they won't, they've got 4 plates on there.
Yeah.
But you're not even getting close to parallel.
Yeah. And so you'll have someone who actually legitimately squats X amount, and this guy thinks he squats the same, but the depth isn't nearly the same. So it's you can't compare the two.
Or I remember it used to be back in the day, a bunch of guys would be like, hey man, what do you leg press? And then you'd see them leg press, and they would like slap on as many plates as they can, and their legs would basically do like a little bend and just back up. That was it.
Yeah.
You're like, that's not a...
Is that ego lifting, you think?
Yeah,
it's ego lifting.
It's like that day me and you and Joe were talking about guys max on the leg press and Smith machine.
It's not what it's there for.
What do you think of a Smith? What do you think of a Smith machine?
I use them all the time.
You think so? There's some benefit. I mean, you hear like,
so.
And people don't know Smith machine's like on a little rack. It's on like a track.
It's on like a Z axis, like a vertical plane. Yeah.
So you think it's? I mean, for some things beneficial.
Very much so. Yeah.
Getting off topic, but on topic. But
I mean, you'll have a lot of guys who just want to stick with barbell stuff and they'll kind of shit on the Smith machine. But I mean, it works great, especially if you have some sort of immobility issues.
Okay.
Like for myself, for instance, like I'll use that for incline and stuff right now. When I do shoulder press, given the range of motion of my shoulders, I can't press directly overhead. So I'll do a high incline to try and get my shoulders to work. And that would be almost impossible without the use of a Smith machine, because that holds me in that groove. Otherwise, my shoulders are going to want to bring it forward. And you can use it with a lot of people, especially like newer lifters and stuff. When you're training someone, that gives me a little bit, you're not worried about the bar wobbling and somebody losing control of it. So
sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's even like on one of the programs, like I remember there was like I think it was a rest pause on those. And it was like with the Smith machine. Yeah. Which again allows you to get to that point, especially when you're trying to push towards failure, and you can just flip it back in, and then you can rack it. And you're not having, like you said, if you have a barbell where maybe it could be a little bit more unforgiving if you get a little tired and your elbows get out of position or whatever. Whereas if it's on that axis, you can still work the chest, work the tricep, but at the same time, you're not risking as much for injury. And if any point, like if you need to rack it, you just flip it and there it goes. It's fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great machine. A lot of times I've seen them in therapy. The Jones machine.
What's a Jones machine?
So instead of just being fixed on a like Z axis, it actually has guides on the sides.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you can completely unrack it and move it around, but you still got the option to.
We were it's kind of funny. Before the podcast started, we were talking about risk versus reward, you know, with supplements, things like that. That's a perfect example of that. Like there's certain benefits you're getting from that machine, but certain things you're missing out on. Yes. And he's got to weigh it like a new lifter that they're probably inexperienced. You want them really hurting themselves and have maybe a bad first couple experiences with weightlifting. They can really kind of get more comfortable at least.
And too often, like, you know, lifting is no different from anything else. It's the movements, the weight, everything is very much relative. You know, like one person's jiu-jitsu game is not going to be just like the next person. It's like we all have different lever lengths and body types and all these things. So, you know, certain machines, certain exercises may be needed given this person may have a mobility issue or an injury or something. Like, you know, for instance, I'll use myself as an example. Like if I try to do dumbbell flies, the range of motion that I have in my shoulders, I can't come back enough to stretch. Well, since that's a free weight movement, you know, it's going to be heavy in a vertical line. You know, it's going to fall toward the floor. So if I can't come back all the way to actually open and stretch, then I can't get that stretch back and really pull from that bottom side. So if I were to use a cable, well, now I can actually, you know, make the line of resistance horizontal. So I can pull this way into it and I've still got activation here. Whereas with a dumbbell, you know, now they're in line over my arms. They're not going to be as much stress on my chest.
Okay.
So, yeah. So it's just adapting.
So if people don't know, like, what do you've got some arthritis. I think you kind of maybe mentioned, like, what are you like dealing with now? Like, cause you're still able to work around these things. And,
well, first off, I mean, like talk about the arthritis. Cause it's not like arthritis from just like, you know, again, that normal people would come across. It's something a little different. You know, because again, it's created a lot of different, like, you know, basically challenges, obstacles.
Yeah. So I guess probably 15 years ago or so, I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis. And while it affects some of my other joints and so on, it really, really, really affects my shoulders. And that's why a lot of times people ask me, like, why don't you do classic physique or bodybuilding? Well, I can't pose for it. I don't have really the external rotation needed to do a front double bicep, a back double bicep.
How much rotation do you have? I'm curious. How much can you move your arm?
As far as external?
Wow. That's not even extra. That's actually, he's still in internal more because you're neutral. Neutral is like your fist right in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Yeah. So if I were to come up, like it's very little. Now I would compete in some bench press competitions. I can still move this way. But it's, you know, like holding a bar to squat, I can't do certain things like that. So competing with bodybuilding, even though I was doing men's physique division and then, you know, some muscle model stuff with WBFF, to build a balanced physique took a very educated approach, you know, and that's where going back to like the Smith machine and some other things, you know, knowing what to use, how to use it to actually get the kind of stimulus that was needed, because I couldn't do just certain exercises. So it really made me think more, learn more, you know.
That's incredible. Like for me, like as a physical therapist, like you requiring certain range of motion, you know, for stimulating certain muscles, activating certain muscles. It's really hard to do. And the fact that you can do that, I think that's impressive to me, because now you're actually talking about, well, I'm gonna use these different pieces of equipment to allow me to at least stimulate these muscles, knowing what you need to do, how to do it to still get the effect and the benefit.
Yeah. So like,
it's pretty wild.
As far like lateral raises, for instance, you know, to hit the, you know, the outer head here on the delt.
Yep.
You know, you're holding the dumbbell here, you're coming up. Well, for me, once I get past here, now that's my scapula lifting. My arm. So I would, instead of, you know, what I lost on the back side of the movement, I would add to the front side of the movement. So I would go to the cable system and actually start with it across my body.
Okay.
You know, so adding essentially to the beginning of the movement, because I didn't have the end range.
So instead of being at your shoulder, or I'm sorry, at your hip, you're actually starting across your body, almost across your belly in some ways.
Enough that not so much that I break posture.
Sure.
Or not so much that I just start to round and pull from my lat or anything, but as much as possible to stretch that delta out and just, you know, you borrow from Peter to pay Paul. You know, take from this to give to this side.
Trying to get as much stimulus of it as you can.
Very much.
Yeah.
You know, and
interesting.
That's where too, like some of the things that Chewy and I have talked about, and it relates to jiu-jitsu and grappling a great deal, like the isometrics and the slow eccentrics and so on.
Oh yeah.
So using, even though it's a shortened range of motion for myself or whatever, making it last longer to create more time under tension.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. That's great.
Yeah. Well, and that's like kind of goes back to what you said earlier, where you're talking about like having an injury and how in the front end, it's not so good, you know, but on the back end, it's useful. And I think that's one of the things where you had this thing that was dealt with you that, again, it's hereditary. You saw it in your father, and then obviously with you, you had this issue where basically your training exacerbated it, made it worse. But on the other end of that, like, and again, maybe this is probably not your favorite thing, but like on the other end of it, it's made you a better coach.
Very much so.
Because, you couldn't just go into it. Because, one of the things, and we've talked about this before, you'll get people where they'll basically say, well, I mean, look at me. Like I can coach now. Like some guy gets in remotely decent shape.
Sure.
And then they say, well, look at me. I can do this. I'm a coach now. You know what I mean? And if anyone's in jiu-jitsu, you've maybe had a situation where there's plenty of guys who are great competitors, not the best coaches,
sure.
Right? They can't explain it. They can't help people, and they don't really care that much. And likewise, I've even, worked with people who were like in great shape or, in that fitness community. And it's like I literally was one time I overheard, I was in a bookstore, and this huge guy was behind me, all jacked up, and he was talking to someone else. And I just kind of like heard their conversation because he was like, yeah, I'm thinking about opening a gym. So my ears perk up. Oh, he's going to open a gym. I'm like, I'm just gonna look at this book and tell me more, I've been listening,
Right, yeah.
And, he was like, he goes, I mean, I'm going to open up a gym, because I've got the body. So, I mean, why not? And I was like, well, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
And so I think it's interesting because, being that I'm sure you've had to rely on that knowledge of like figuring out how to work around injuries, how to like work around people's different limitations, whether they're heavy, whether they're short, whether they've got bad shoulders, bad knees. You have to work around all this stuff. And it probably made you a much better coach because of it.
Very much so. And that's the thing is every single person, even, with this or with jiu-jitsu or whatever, everybody has, their own unique set of issues or problems or whatever that you have to work around. I was actually just discussing yesterday with someone, deadlift, like in lever length as it associates with deadlift, or squat and so on. Like, your legs may be longer than mine, your torso may be shorter than mine, whatever the case is, it's going to change how you lift, make you lift a bit different than me. The mechanics are still, there and still similar because we're both human, but it's going to change things up. And then even with diet, even more so. So all those things very much change the approach.
Well, that was another thing talking about diet, because you mentioned it. That was one of the things where like it kind of blew my mind because, when I did the diet with you, I mean, I guess there's this underlying idea that just carbs are terrible.
Right. Yeah.
Carbs are bad. Carbs are going to make you fat. It's carbs are evil. I mean, it just, there's all these, there was a video the other day, I'm sure you've seen it, where like, it made me laugh, but it was a guy who was like, he's like getting ready to eat some eggs. And it's like, this kid looks at the video and the woman's like, nope, eggs are bad. So he throws the eggs away.
Yeah.
So then he's like, all right, I'm going to eat some vegetables. And it's like, no, vegetables are going to kill you, whatever.
Yeah,
and then, he's down to the oatmeal. And then eventually he's just like going to drink water.
And the water, she said the water was bad.
Yeah, water's bad. Yeah. So like, and it's like all these, like these cornballs on the internet that just like say this stuff. And then people take it for, as being truthful. But then like we were on the diet, when you put me on the diet, I remember looking at it the first time, I was like, hey bro, I was like, you give me the right diet? Like a lot of friggin' food. I don't know how I'm gonna eat all this food. And you're like, yeah, bro, just eat it.
Yeah, we're good.
You're good. And I remember eating it and I was like down like 3 or 4 pounds the first week because we were purging all that water. And I was like, what the shit? Like I thought whatever. And it was about just eating the right foods at the right time. But I feel like that's just such a common misconception that like people make, like this food is bad or that food's bad. And it's like, it's not bad.
No, not at all. The body lacks carbohydrates. I mean, that's the easiest form of energy for it. What you run into is if you have a great deal of stored body fat, then we want to pull from that.
Right.
So we want to put you in a caloric deficit. We need protein intact so that we can recover and keep the muscle and so on. So then you want to cut from the carbs. You don't need as much fuel because you have stored fuel. That's the thing. And
you'll essentially, you're saying that you'll cut the carbs, you'll keep the protein up, and you're trying to get your body to kind of use some of that fat, essentially, in simple terms.
Yeah, you're putting yourself. The only way you can lose weight is by putting yourself in a caloric deficit.
Correct. Yeah.
And any diet, whatever it may be, you've got 1,000 out there, the keto and Atkins, and all these different diets, but any diet geared toward weight loss is simply putting you in a caloric deficit. Even like, intermittent fasting, it's reducing the amount of time in a day that you can eat in an effort to put you in a caloric deficit.
Sure.
Keto, it's completely removing a macronutrient in an effort to put you in a caloric deficit. So that's really it. If you're trying to lose weight and the scale's not coming down, you're eating too much.
Yeah. And like people always want like the simple, like give me these rules, like, these, no carbs, no fat, no this, no that. It's like, well, what's your body like? What's your body like? What's your fuel? What, I guess everybody's body runs a little differently off different fuel sources, I guess, in some ways, right?
Yeah, but we're all human, man.
Sure.
So it's one of those things where, but most times it's going to be where you start to see huge variances depends upon like certain issues the person may have, health issues and their blood panels, when you start looking at hormone levels and thyroids, so on and so on. But for the most part, as long as someone is eating, in a manner based on their needs for their day, like you hear people talk all the time. Well, my grandfather, he ate this, and this, and he was lean. He also worked 12 hours a day in the damn coal mines. And you're sitting at a desk, So it's one of those things. But
yeah, I agree. And then there's people that get sick. If they don't have any calories at all, they start feeling sick or ill, or their body starts having different hormonal changes and things happen, right?
Yeah. So as far as like, I'm assuming you're talking about like blood sugar dropping and so on.
Well, I mean, I've heard, people get like from keto, right? They get like some issues with
keto
that.
flu and stuff.
Yeah, like the flu, but then like it's just weird, and it's almost not sustainable if you're somebody that's like high level.
If you're gonna train, I mean, that's like one of the things where I remember like playing around with
that, right?
Yeah, play that. And I'm like, man, like it was. I felt really weak when I was training because it's like I would feel fine for a certain time, but if I didn't do some sort of carb cycling, I just felt incredibly weak, and it was like depleted me of all the water because you're just flushing all that water.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a lot of strength, and I would get cramps and stuff like that. And then they're like, so you supplement with all these. I remember then I was like talking to a guy, and he was like, yeah, well then you can supplement with these different electrolytes. I'm like, that doesn't sound all that great, because I'm like, why do I have to supplement with electrolytes if this is just supposed to be a good diet?
Right.
I was like, because it's like I should be able to get what I need from the food, and then that's it. Because especially with electrolytes, that's not something I really want to play around with too much.
Yeah.
Because especially when you're training, you can really mess stuff up.
Yeah.
You get an electrolyte imbalance, and all of a sudden like stuff goes awry. So that's when I was kind of like, I'm done with this. It's fine for some people, but for as much as I train, like no way.
So and that's, even what I said there to Eugene, just eating for your needs. Like if I know that I'm going to train hard. Like when I come up and I train with you Thursday, I know I know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to eat accordingly for that. If my day is going to be less strenuous, I'm not going to work out. It's a rest day. I don't need as much food.
Right.
Now, I mean, some people will refer to it like carb cycling.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it in a nutshell. Like you eat more carbs on
cycling carbs depending on what you need.
Exactly right. Like it's really simple. But the issue comes whenever we're having, whenever we start to have other issues, like if somebody is looking to lose weight, controlling blood sugar is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's because like as we get excess body fat, we begin to be insulin resistant. Okay. And then, hyperglycemic, type 2 diabetic, so on and so on. So there we want to monitor and control your blood sugar. So, carbs, all carbs turn to sugar. It's the rate at which they do that makes them simple or complex and so on. So, controlling your carb intake using certain things like GDAs and so on.
What's GDA?
Glucose disposal agents.
Okay.
Things like that to kind of help level blood sugar. Which is just a supplement you can get over the counter, but it kind of helps like chromium and, berberine, things like that, kind of help control blood sugar. And in doing so, we don't get those big spikes. We can kind of get your blood sugar back to normal throughout the day. But that's the thing is like the leaner you get, that starts to, you regain sensitivity to that insulin. Okay. So then carbs become even different. Like once we got you leaned up, did you see how we changed the carbs?
Well, what was interesting, and this is like, because like, for people that don't know, first off, I have a somewhat low thyroid. It's not low enough that they need to like get in there and really go after it. But it's something that has to be monitored. And I have always considered myself as someone who just like, man, I just get big. Like I can just look at food and I get bigger,
Sure.
And that's always was like, I could just put on weight. And then it was interesting because when we did the diet, we dieted down and it was like recently, this is one of the things that's interesting is I can look at the diet that we had in place like 3 years ago versus now, like when I started gaining weight and like the food's way more now. And I'm like slowly going up. And I mean, like I'm eating a crap ton of food. Like,
yes,
like hell, I mean, like what was it? I'm eating like, like I basically get a whole banana in one of the things. I'm eating like a big mound of rice at one of my meals. Like, I'm like, I'm eating enough to where I'm like, I have to work at this. And I told someone, I was like, I feel like, I remember like the little skinny guys would always say, hey man, I'm a hard gainer. I can't gain any weight.
Yeah, you are.
And then now that I'm doing this, I'm like, man, this is It's difficult. It's not as easy to gain weight as people think if you're gaining the right weight and you're eating the right foods.
Yeah. So like, you think, 5,000 calories of fast food will fit in a bag.
Yeah.
5,000 calories of one ingredient foods will cover this entire table.
Right.
So it's in my experience, especially the more muscle you have, your energy expenditure becomes, higher and higher. So your caloric output being so excessive at this point, you have to eat more than you're burning to grow. So trying to get ahead of that takes a lot of food.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. So like, why is it that, because again, with the meals and stuff that you programmed for me, I could eat like, because again, people think that they're burning like a 7,000 calories with their Fitbit, right? It grossly overestimates how much you're burning, because like someone will have their BMR will be, 1,500 or something, and they're saying, well, my Fitbit just said I did jujitsu and I burned 1,000 calories. Like, no, you didn't. That's almost enough to fuel a human for the day,
Sure.
And we don't burn as much as we think. But I remember like lifting, like my lifting days, I always got way more food. And like opposed to my cardio days.
Yeah.
Like my cardio days, I wouldn't get as much food, even if they would be training and whatever. But like my lifting days, if I lifted, man, I could eat a lot of food and I got more food and my weight would not go up. It would continue to go down if I was losing weight or whatever. Why is it that like lifting? Because I think a lot of times when people think when they need to lose weight, they need to do just crap tons of cardio, which cardio is good. But what is it about the lifting that really helps facilitate that weight loss, or basically just to chew up all those calories?
So first of all, strength training is the basis for fat loss.
Okay.
I'll say that right up front. And I say fat loss, not weight loss. There's a big difference. Like you can eat air and lose weight.
Okay.
But, to lose fat, you have to take, a smart approach to it. But, strength training being the stimulus that's going to help you maintain that muscle and keep that muscle. The effect that strength training has on your metabolism lasts significantly longer than cardio.
Okay.
So, you're continuing to burn calories at a higher rate post a hard strength training workout, as opposed to just doing a cardio workout. The effects last much longer than that session.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, I guess, to repair everything and
sure,
all the damage you've done.
Yeah. Yeah. And then too, feeding you excess on those days is continuing to, give your body what it needs. So again, we're creating a stimulus. We're telling our body with lifting, listen, I don't want to lose any muscle. Mm-hmm. That lifting is that stimulus that we're using to say, hey, we need to keep all the muscle that we can. That's not the tissue we want to cut. We want to burn body fat, and giving your body adequate amounts of protein and so on to do that is key. Not to mention too, there's more in the muscle than just protein. Glycogen.
Sure.
Being, carbs attached to water stored in the muscle and so on, so it's more than just eating, a ton of protein, getting those food in, getting that food in, like you said, the bananas and the rice and all the carbs and such.
Yeah. And that's like what you just mentioned. So like a lot of people, I think when they think about losing weight, they just ramp up the cardio and sometimes it's a little slack on the lifting. But like we were talking about earlier, that's pretty important because lifting will, if we're losing weight, if we don't want to lose that muscle that we've developed, right?
Yes. Then
it's important that we keep lifting because that's going to help keep the muscle because it's providing the stimulus, right?
Exactly. It's like Wolf's Law,
I'm not familiar.
The body can and will respond to stress.
Sure.
Most times it's in reference to bone density.
Right.
Yes. But it's it's like, calluses or anything.
Yeah.
You have to have a certain amount of stress to build muscle.
Mm-hmm.
If you stop at 12 every set and you had 16, 17 reps, you're not really going to get excessive growth like you're hoping for.
Okay.
How much, like protein wise, like what do you recommend? Like, I mean, I know it could be variable, but like, what do you recommend? Is there a minimal like amount of like protein? Like, hey, you should be, everybody kind of talks about this per kilogram or per pound of body weight. Is there something that's like a good, like just an idea to go by?
Yeah. So a lot of times people think that, when we start coaching and they send me a progress pic in the beginning that, okay, well, that's the starting line. That's what but no, I'm actually assessing that. Okay. I'm assessing that to kind of make an estimate on your lean body mass. So like what you were saying there, X amount of grams of protein per pound of body weight, kilogram, whatever. So think if you've got a guy who's they're 200 pounds each, and one has 8% body fat and one has 28% body fat. Would you think they need the same amount of protein? No. Absolutely not. So considering someone's lean body mass is key, and depending, so normally for males, you look at, anywhere between 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of lean body mass, in females, you're looking at, 0.5 to 1 gram.
Now for lean body mass, are you doing like, obviously there's like, you know, the water immersion you can do, but like, are you doing like skin caliper? Is that how you assess that?
I'm looking at their photographs.
Just photographs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Because 99% of my clients, like I'll never get to actually see in person. So, you know, whenever they send you those photos, you look and you make an educated guess as to what their body fat is. And then you work from there. And then the feedback on their part, which I can't reiterate enough, the importance of that. You know, you look at that and you listen to what they say and all the feedback they have. And then you adjust inside of those parameters.
What are you listening for? And somebody's working with you, you know, remotely. What are you listening for? What kind of, is there certain cues, certain words you're like kind of paying attention to?
Well, I ask them, like I have different, you know, on the check-in form, I'll send them a form to check in with, and there'll be places on there for them to describe their hunger, their digestion, you know, sleep, strength, all these things we're looking at.
Okay.
You know, there's so many, you know, there's so many things that we're monitoring and looking at rather than just what they weigh. You know, like you might weigh the same thing for a few weeks and we might not have to adjust because your body composition is improving. You can't build muscle as quickly as you can lose fat, but we can see short periods of time there where your body's improving and getting into a better position without actually changing too much.
Interesting. Yeah. So they actually, like, their weight will stay the same, but the composition will start to change.
Especially with new lifters, you know, because it's such a new stimulus. You know, like if someone's never touched weights, they've never really watched their diet. It's kind of like the holy grail of, you know, of fitness, because they can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time because it's such a new stimulus. Their body's just going bonkers. You know, like you hear of the beginner gains. Yeah. Yep. And that's the thing, you know, like your body's just like completely overwhelmed with this new stimulus. It's soaking up food, you know. So yeah, sometimes you see that.
But even like me, like it's interesting to, because, you know, I've been doing check-ins for 2.5 years now. And so it's interesting to go back and like, I've got a folder and I can just like, it's like, and you can see me because I cut weight for the first thing. Yeah. And I mean, I got super skinny. I remember I was all like, I mean, I was like, all my, like, none of my clothes fit. Yeah. You know, I was so thin, you know, I lost all that weight. And then what's interesting is with this weight cut, for this 2022, I was in about the same weight range, but I was much bigger. Like my shoulders were bigger. I was fuller. I was like, huh. I was like, well, that's cool. Because before I was like, I was way like thinner. I mean, you could, my abs were really popping out, but like I looked kind of thin. Yeah. Whereas now it was like, man, like I was like bigger.
Exactly. So I'm not using you. This is not directed towards you.
No, it's fine.
Every fat guy thinks he's 10 pounds from being shredded.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. You know, like, but you know, whenever you really start to lean down and you really start to reveal what's underneath that, it's like, oh, okay, I didn't have as much muscle as I thought maybe I did.
Right. Yeah.
So my first bodybuilding show kind of happened by accident. I was getting set for a bench press competition. How
much were you at the time weight wise?
190. I was going to be in the 198 weight class.
198. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I was like, you know, it got canceled. There wasn't enough entries or whatever. And it was at a gym I was working at in Enterprise, Alabama. And then my ex sees this thing. She's like, well, why don't you try bodybuilding? I was like, I don't want to do that shit. Like, I have no desire to do that. Like, and I was like, I can't pose anyway. And at the time it was my left shoulder that was, you know, impinged. And she's like, well, these guys aren't posing. I'm like, those guys wearing board shorts? Like, wait, what's that? You know? So I started looking into it. But so I ended up going to a seminar, and it was being held by the guy that I later worked for who coached me.
Okay.
And so they offered to help me and so on. So I start leaning down. I'm like, dude, I get to about 190. I'm gonna be friggin' peeled. Yeah. Be so peeled. 190 came and went. Like 180, freaking nasty, man. Yeah. 180 came and went. So on stage, I was like 168 or something.
Oh, wow.
And wasn't as lean at 168 as I was later at 210.
Yeah.
You know, in years to come. But yeah, like, that's the thing. Like when you start really shredded, especially on a level of like stage lean, when you get really dried out and you get really lean, you know, there's a difference in like being beach lean, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And being like stage lean.
Oh yeah. 100%.
And then my conditioning improved over the years. But even then I remember thinking like, Jesus Christ, I just passed once. I've weighed this in fucking 4th grade. What's going on?
4th
grade. But yeah. So, but yeah, you know, then each time ideally you ratchet up, you know, like, you know, the lean is, you've got more muscle than last time. So you're bigger this time. And then when you bulk, you weigh a little bit more this time. And so on.
Well, and that's funny to like the leanness. I feel like, I think I saw some article or something and they were talking about some like actor and he was like saying he was 4% body fat. I was like, no, you're not. I was like, there's no way. I was like,
oh yeah, you can tell.
I was like, it's like 4% body fat. That's you walking up on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, those guys are, I mean, they're like you said, grainy, where their muscles are like pushing through the skin. It's like, you look great.
Mm-hmm.
You look great, but you're not 4%.
You feel terrible. Like when you're that lean, like when Tyler and I worked together the last few times here, and we got exceptionally lean, like glute striations in your low back, like even the pads in your feet deplete.
Oh, you were telling me about that.
Yeah.
Like, so weird to walk.
You just
because all the fat's going away.
Yeah. Your fingers are bony and all that good stuff. You got that
the gaunt face. Yeah.
Yeah. That's 3%, and it feels like shit.
Yeah.
You know, and a very small percentage of people will ever know what that feels like. You know, as there's no reason to aside from doing bodybuilding, but that's not something you could maintain for a long period of time, and nor would you want to.
Right.
You know, so whenever they're saying, you know, like I was 3% for this entire movie, and I feel, probably not, dude. Probably not.
Yeah. Well, and like, you know, I know they'll do like water cuts, like for shirtless scenes.
Sure.
I remember like watching Henry Cavill, like he was talking about like before he did some of the scenes in The Witcher, like he basically didn't drink water for 24 hours or whatever, and he was just like miserable because it was just trying to dry him out a little bit.
Yeah.
But like to say that you're 3% body fat, 4% body fat, I'm like, that just doesn't, like, that's something else. Like, I mean, it's like someone saying like, you know, you're pretty good in your gym versus like you're like a world champion or something. It's like it's a different level, because you're getting super into, like, especially when you're talking about bodybuilding, you're getting into like the performance realm, right? Like there's a difference between doing bodybuilding and like enjoying that and looking good, right, and being like healthy, versus like, I'm gonna go and see how much I can tweak this. Just like jiu-jitsu, you can do jiu-jitsu and do it at a moderate pace, whatever. And there's a difference between being a competitor who trains like 5 days a week, twice a day, and he's competing at all these tournaments, whatever. That is a whole different avenue, and you don't just casually go into that realm.
Yeah, and that's why, like, and I say this a lot, but there's a big difference in competing and being competitive.
Sure.
You know, a lot of people sign up. I mean, anybody can sign up. Anybody can sign up for an amateur show, but you may be a competitor, but that does not mean you're competitive.
Sure. Yeah, you get every now and then you'll see one of those videos where they'll have some guy out there who just like has no business being out there, and he's just flexing, and he's got like a little pot belly, you know, like, come on, what are you doing, bro?
And that's where you need a coach that's willing to hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
You know, like even me in that case there, you know, I was like 190 and I'm gonna be shredded.
Yeah.
And Michael's like, no, nuh-uh.
Well, I wonder,
still fat, bro.
I wonder if that's just like one of those things where like those dudes who sign up for those things, they don't even have a coach. They're just signing up
sometimes,
you know, because it like, for instance, in amateur MMA, you'll have the same thing happen sometimes. I remember one of my like early fights, the dude was from team, like, I think it was Team Death Punch or something. He just came up with a name.
Love it.
Yeah. Right. And so he comes out and he's like, I remember, like, you know, I'm getting all amped up for the fight, and I kind of like pass the dressing room areas, and like I see him and his girlfriend or wife or whatever, and she's holding the pads. And like, she's not holding the pads like where she's like like where she has experience. She's like just holding them out like, please don't hit me.
Yeah.
And he's sitting here, and I remember thinking, okay, you know, it's like, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think that's a good sign for me, you know. And we get out there, when I walk out, we have a whole crew of me and my team members, and then he walks out and he's like got his girlfriend and her friend. There's no one else with him, and I get out there and beat the crap out of the guy, and I'm like, again, he showed up to compete. But you weren't competitive, and you were never going to be, because you never really trained.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes, you know, like, you don't know what you don't know, and you'll have people who want to sign up for even like a bodybuilding show, and they don't know, because their mom told them that they were the biggest, strongest boy there ever was. And, you know, the cashier told them that they had huge arms, and their friends say that they're the next Mr. Olympia, and then that's where having a coach that says, no, dude, we still need work. You know, that's the thing, man. Like, you know,
our son's a big boy.
Yeah.
What's the hardest part of coaching for you? Do you think there's something like, for, you know, as a physical therapist, like I work with people and have them like, hey, you got to do these exercises to get yourself feeling better. You coming in an hour or whatever a couple times a week is not enough. It's not enough stimulus,
you
know, to get your body to do what I want it to do.
Yeah.
What is like some of the ways maybe you get people to kind of be compliant, or where you look for, try to engage them better?
You can tell when you talk to somebody out of the gate how serious they are. Like, if they make light of it, like, and you know that they've never really, you know, done any kind of serious dieting or training or anything, and they're like, yeah, no problem, dude. Like, I'm all, you know, and they start essentially just kind of like building themselves up and telling you like how this is not going to be an issue, whatever. And they kind of come around like they're not taking it too serious. Then you can kind of tell. It's like, okay, you don't realize how much, how big of an endeavor this is going to be, like it sucks.
It's an endeavor.
Sucks, maybe if it doesn't suck, it's at least a challenging adjustment.
Sure.
We'll say it like that, because I mean, I've actually like the routine that I have now with the food and everything else. But in the beginning, it was like this a lot of food. Like these lifts are a little bit more challenging than I was expecting, because I was like, okay, I get to use moderate weight, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more challenging. So maybe it sucks in the one way.
Yes.
What you do sucks.
That's what I was getting at.
But what we do is like, this is just a challenging adjustment.
Yeah. As far as just like leaning down and losing some weight, like,
sure.
It sounds terrible to say, but it's not really that hard. If you monitor and you see it at this point very easily. Like if you monitor what you eat and so on, and you're willing to be a little bit hungry, you can lose weight. Like it's not terrible. If all the markers are on point and everything's healthy, it's not as big of a deal. As far as getting like stage lane or something, that's entirely different. But to finish what I was saying there, like the people that are, they realize what they're getting into and they respect it. It's like, okay, well, they're going to work hard at it because they understand, they're going to have to give up certain things and make some certain sacrifices.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The only other thing that's really difficult to deal with is honestly not being transparent in check-ins. Like,
and that.
Like, yeah,
it. You've done this long enough.
Yes. It's
when you say not transparent, you mean like not like if, for instance, someone's like, Eli, I have no idea what's going on. I did everything that you said, and for some reason I gained 5 pounds.
Yeah, like it's math and science. It's like it's not like something just crazy is going to happen. So if it's a healthy individual, you can pretty much, and you look back, like each time someone checks in, you look over that information and you're acquiring data, so that you can better make adjustments later. But yeah, it's like, you didn't eat exactly the same way this week and nothing was off and you gained 8 pounds. Like that didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, that was, I remember when I was at Worlds this year, like for whatever reason, my weight starts whenever I stop lifting. The week, like about a week and a half to just let my body heal up, it's like my weight will start dropping.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, then we have to adjust a little bit a week of, because like, oh crap, the weight's just coming off. And so then we have to, add food in. I remember, this last tournament in particular, I was like, hey, like I'm at this weight. I'd like to be about 2 pounds heavier. Like, what do we need to do? And then you're like, give me a second. Like about like 30 minutes later, here, eat this much rice and then eat a Pop-Tart. And he's like, and I was like, okay. And I remember I was curious. I'm like, okay, why am I eating that many carbs with a Pop-Tart? Like specifically, why am I eating that much? And you're like, well, because if we eat this many carbohydrates, it'll hold this much water, and that should put us to about right here. And sure enough, the next day it was like right there. I was like, well,
he's really a mad scientist.
I was like, ain't that some stuff? Because again, for a lot of people that don't really know this stuff, like when you get into like food and like even like with the body, when you're lifting weights and stuff like that, it's very it just seems like a guessing game to most of us.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I guess because of the nature of what you do with like the lifting, the bodybuilding and the coaching for people, it's much more of like a very like a tactical strategic thing where, okay, we want to work this muscle group. Well, let's do this. We can't use this muscle in this way. Well, we can use it this way. Or with this food here, we can add this food in and this will give us the desired effect that we want. We can change it this way or that way or whatever.
Sure. And that's the thing is, like I'll have people ask me like, when did you start training? And I'll tell them 2014. And they're like, sometimes they're confused. They think, didn't you lift weights when you were a kid? And so on. Well, sure I did, but didn't really like, I was kind of running in place. You know what I'm saying? Once I actually began working with coaches and people that understood and they knew, then everything was, I was actually working towards something. I was actually training rather than just working out. I had a goal in mind. I had a path. And then I began to learn. And it's like, okay, well, now that I have these tools, I can essentially adjust and so on. And I have way more control over my body than I once thought. This is the same thing for me, man. I was a chubby kid. So it was like, maybe I'm just born this way. I'm just a big, heavy guy.
Yeah.
And then, I found out that I had fairly good strength. And so it's like, okay, well, maybe I can lift more, but I'm just not going to look like a bodybuilder.
Right.
And then you're like, no, if I control my diet, I can control my physique a lot more.
Well, and isn't it an interesting thing when I think about like both diet and lifting, both of those things? So for instance, like if someone wants to learn jiu-jitsu, they come in, they seek a coach, right? They seek a coach, they find someone who knows what they're doing. They say like, I'm going to pay you money to show me something because I don't know. Right.
Sure.
But with lifting in particular, diet's a little bit too, but lifting and diet both are really bad about it. And it's like people first off, like they're like, I know how to lift. I can lift some weights. Whatever. I'll just go and lift some weights. Okay. And then with diet, it's like, I know how to eat food. I know what I'm doing. Like, I'll just whatever. And it's so interesting because you'll even see people like I've seen, and I don't mean this in any negative sense, but I've seen like more overweight people give dieting advice than I can count. And I'm like, well, if you know the advice, why haven't you put it to practice? It's like, you know, to me it would be like taking coaching advice from a guy that's never rolled.
Yeah.
It's like, you've never rolled, you've never dedicated any time to your craft, but yet you're going to try to give advice. It's like, but lifting and dieting, I feel like they're really bad about that, where people they just come up with something and they'll just throw it out there, and really there's no like battle tested sort of experience with it.
Yeah. You know, especially, you know, if someone lifted in high school and they think, well, you know, I did this, and this, whether it's correct or not, you know,
and they don't go seek out a coach.
Right. Or, you know, they read an article or something. There's, I was having a discussion with a friend of mine. He's an optometrist. We were talking the Dunning-Kruger effect. Are you familiar with that?
I am. Yeah. But you go ahead and explain it.
It's you essentially you learn a little bit about a subject, and your lack of knowledge on the subject causes you to greatly overestimate your knowledge or your ability in this. So it's like one guy, for instance, in your field, like a guy got in a fight in the 4th grade, and now he's a killer, and he's going to come to your class and just wreck people.
We've had plenty of those.
I'm sure you have.
Street fighters,
but
undefeated on the streets.
That's it. That's
streets. So the Dunning-Kruger effect. Sorry, I'm getting you off topic.
No, but that's essentially it. You'll have someone who, you know, they bought this program or they read Flex magazine every month's issue, and now they, you know, and whether or not they've practiced that or anything else, you know, it's they greatly overestimate. Whereas if someone who's actually applied themselves, you know, I think we've talked about it before too, like that unconscious incompetence. Like you don't know enough about it to even know how little you know about it.
Sure. And I think from as I've gotten older, one of the things that I've become more, anytime I want to learn something, I want to go find a coach.
Same.
Like it just, as I was, again, if you're younger and sometimes you don't have the finance, that's a realistic thing. But now as I get older, I'm like, man, like time is precious. I don't have a lot of it. And so if I can go find someone that like can coach me and really knows what they're doing, that's it. You know, that's the way to do it.
I look back and I think of the time that I wasted.
Sure.
You know, and the injuries that I could have avoided, you know, by having proper coaching or by having help, you know. It's just, you're investing in yourself. You know? And I still do that. I still work with coaches. I work with you every week. You know, I work with different people. I want to learn and expand my knowledge on that so that I can better grow myself and better help my clients.
Well, and that was one of the things I was telling someone like me and Dukes, for you guys listening, one of my students who worked with Eli. Cause again, you know, of course me, like I come in there and all of a sudden I'm getting skinnier and leaner and stuff like that. And guys are like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm working with this guy down in Somerset, you know, and, you know, I started posting about him. So like, well, they hired him. They had basic similar results. But Dukes, you know, he's like 50 years old, you know, and he's great.
Dukes is awesome. Shout out to Dukes.
Yeah. He got lighter than I think he said he's as light as he was in high school. Right. And he was like, this is crazy. And again, another guy who struggled with trying different diets, struggled with like, you know, doing different things and everything else. And then basically got on the diet, and he wasn't like a drinker in the sense of like an alcoholic. He was just a drink where he was like a connoisseur of drinks, of alcohol, right? Like, so he liked his beer, like he's a beer guy, and then still like to have his bourbon, stuff like that. Whereas when he was on the diet, he was having good results. He's like, I'm not drinking anything.
It'll kind of motivate you to be a little tighter with things.
Yeah. Cause you feel good because you're making results. Yeah. And so I remember him though, and he had those results, and we both talked about this, and we're like, man, like, I don't have a lot of regrets in life, but one of my regrets was not hiring someone to help me do this stuff. Yeah. And I think that's the same thing. I was like, man, what could have results had I done if I was like in my mid 20s and had been doing this since then? I mean, I would look way different, you know, and granted, better late than never, but it's like one of those things where that was a result because more than anything, when we worked together, I learned how to actually eat food for what I wanted. Like I still have like I eat plenty of meals where I just eat whatever the hell I want to eat, if that's what I want. But then a lot of my food is basically, I want to feel great for training. I want to feel cognitively sharp. I want to feel like I'm recovering. I don't want to feel heavy and bloated and everything. Okay, well, great. Well, then I eat these things and I know how, I have a much better knowledge of that stuff now.
Very much. Yeah. And like everything kind of revolves around your diet. Like that's what you're taking in to both fuel your body and actually recreate and build tissue in your body. So it's like you literally are what you eat. So, prior to training, prior to anything, like you're and that's what I was getting at earlier, even, eating for your goals and for your needs, like you said there, eating before you train specific foods. I'm not going to eat like a big heavy meal with a bunch of fat and so on before I train, because then that fat's going to digest slowly. I'm going to feel a bit more lethargic.
Right.
I want something that's going to digest and be easy on my stomach, light on my stomach, so that I can train and feel good, and then have more after.
Yeah, that was like, you hear people all the time, I can't eat before I train. I'm like, well, what are you eating?
That's just it. Yeah.
And then like you said, you can make a couple tweaks there, and all of a sudden they feel fine. They can eat, and then they have more energy for their training.
Yeah, I can remember being in that position. It's like, no, I'll get sick if I eat. And it was like, well, I didn't really think about, if I don't eat, my blood sugar is going to drop and I'm going to get sick anyway. And then thinking not considering what I was eating. Even it's just like, well, I ate this. What'd you have? Well, you had a hot dog and a bag of chips. Of course you're going to feel terrible.
Had a peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah. Let me throw this scenario out there. Like maybe you ate lunch around noon, don't have time to eat. You got to train at 6. It's like 4:30, 5 o'clock. What do you do?
I wouldn't want to go that long.
All
if
right.
I ate at 12, I wouldn't want to go till 5 without eating.
Well, I'm just saying, say you
worst case scenario,
sure. or what's something like, how long before, or how much time before, like is like the absolute minimum like amount of time that you can give yourself.
Yeah.
And then also what's kind of your go-to if you have to go to a couple things.
If I'm coming up to train with Chewy, I'm going to eat different than if I was going to work out at my gym with weights.
All right.
So I'll eat a bit lighter before I train,
okay.
with Chewy. Anytime I'm working on grappling or anything, or even when I was working with Ben, with striking and stuff, I'll eat a bit lighter than I would before I lifted, because I'm moving around a bit more and so on. I don't want that on my stomach. I just don't feel good. And that's me, and you'll notice some differences per the individual with that. Normally I'll have a meal a couple hours out.
Okay.
Like I have, so like from Somerset to train at Derby City is about 2 hours, is 2.5 hours for me.
To drive?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
And, so
for real.
Yeah.
That's commitment.
Well, I mean, it's worth it. So that's what I want to do.
Yes.
So for me, I'll eat, after I leave, I'll stop, get something about 2 hours out, and then I'll have like a small snack before I come in.
Okay.
I might have a little bit of protein shake or something, have a banana, have some fruit, something that sits light on my stomach, a small meal before I come in, something that digests quickly. And then after I leave, it would be just similar to something. I'll have a normal meal.
Okay.
Now, if I were to lift, I would eat probably 20, 30, I'll eat and I'll try to give myself some time to digest. So maybe 30 minutes. I used to do more, but I feel like as I get older, I eat a little bit less before I work out now. When I was younger and I was really trying to push food and grow more and more and more, I would eat larger meals before I worked out. I would have to wait a little bit longer. Otherwise, like I'm still trying to digest all that food, the blood's in my, abdomen muscles and so on, trying to help with that. So, but if your question was if I'm out somewhere, what do I go to?
Yeah.
Well, if I'm stuck, so this is super easy. I mean, if there's a Wendy's by, you can grab grilled chicken, you can grab a baked potato.
Okay.
I mean, that's easy. And that's like, if I have a client and they message me like, dude, I've just dropped my meal and it fell everywhere and I can't, whatever. Like, dude, what's close to you? And if a Wendy's is close, we can grab grilled chicken, we can grab potato. That's pretty easy.
Yeah.
I don't make any money from Wendy's, but if you're out there listening, even the chili is like, the beans, that's carbs. That has a good amount of fiber. It's relatively low fat. Those are just easy things. And now if I have better options, that's worst case scenario again. If I have better options, then, I'll get some grilled chicken or something.
Yeah, I remember I had to do the Wendy's one time. I was traveling and I was in a small town and there was nothing. There was like no like food options really around. And I was like, hey, bro, I was like, I figured there would have been, because I was there for some jiu-jitsu stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I figured there would have been like more stuff that I could do, like, maybe even like a Qdoba or something, or a Chipotle or something. I could find something.
Yeah, those are good options.
Yeah, they can work around those. Well, there was nothing. So I was like, what can I have? And he's like, go to Wendy's, baked potato, whatever. And then I think I got I got him to give me like a little thing of like avocado or some whatever on the side.
They got avocado at those places.
Yeah, or it's like a little cup of guacamole or something. I was like, just give me a little bit on the side. So I can have a little fat with my.
I was just trying to see if I get on that Pop-Tart diet, but I guess
man,
not.
that's secret squirrel stuff. That's like a young lady. She's competing this weekend at the Arnold. Bryn is her name. She's doing exceptional. She's doing great. We're actually.
Is this Bryn that trains jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No,
Yeah. So we're getting ready for Pans, and we're in a really good place with her weight here. Like we got plenty of room. So, there's nothing broke, so there's nothing to fix. So I've got her eating like normal. And then I gave her a little bit of extra food the day before because I knew we had room for it. And I wanted to kind of cap off glycogen a little bit beforehand. So I told her, I was like, add a Pop-Tart to your last meal.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's what I've heard about.
Yeah,
it's really not that big a deal, man.
Yeah, it's time for the Pop-Tart.
Yeah. I think the post you made with your Pop-Tart, like now everybody thinks like that's some sort of secret.
Is there a magical flavor? Now we're after.
Bro, I don't know. I just know that
is there a magical flavor?
Wild berry is more anabolic.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Wild berry's good.
Yeah, it's more anabolic. Like they've done studies.
They've done studies.
Don't
cite me. Just do your research. But they've done some studies.
It's been written.
Yeah. Oh man,
yeah.
That's funny. It's funny though, because if you diet down and you get lean, and especially if you're not eating a bunch of added sugar, and I mean, like you don't appreciate how sweet stuff is.
Oh god,
I've got a video of me eating a pop, like, because when I did that first cut with you, I mean, it was like I mean, everything was just dialed in. I didn't have any added sugar, nothing, whatever, except for fruit. And I remember eating that Pop-Tart for the first time, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so sweet.
It's euphoric.
Yeah, it's wild. Well, it's like, have you ever seen the videos where the guy eats chocolate for the first time? Like he was a cacao farmer. Never had milk chocolate before. Never had chocolate. And then this French guy brings like them a chocolate bar. Here, try some of this. And he eats it and his eyes light up. He's like, what is this? He's like, this is the chocolate. He's like, what the hell? He starts sharing it with their friends. They're all wild. And then even Jess and I, we had one of our friends. We went and got ice cream one time together. We were a little ice cream place, and we're sitting there eating, and they have their daughter with them, and their daughter's like 4 or something. And they're like, they look at each other like, because they're super conscious about this time. They looked at each other. It's like, you think it's time? It's time. And so they give this kid its first bite of ice cream around 3 or 4 years old. That kid's eyes went like cross-eyed and it's like light up. Oh, like it was one. And you just don't appreciate, like, because sugar's so inundated in everything, you don't appreciate like how sugary and how sweet stuff is until you get away from it for a while.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
It's so much. There's so, like, I watch kind of when I give my kids food, like snacks and stuff for school, and I watch how much, and I'm like, holy shit. I mean, it like adds up quick. It's like everything. Every single thing is that's so much.
The flip side of that's true too. Like whenever like we're in prep or something and you're not having many sweets, it's like sweet potatoes taste so sweet.
I cook them a little bit longer because you get the sugars to come out just a little bit more, get a little caramel. It's so good.
And then like in the off season when you're having a bit more foods and so on like that, it's like, well, okay, you don't notice it as much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, are we ready?
Let's do it.
We've been about an hour in at this thing. So,
all right.
Chewy, you got some stuff you want to talk about.
So here's what we're going to do, guys. So real quick. So we're going to go through some prizes real quick. Actually, first we're going to do some Q&A with you guys. Here's how this is going to work. We're going to play a game. We're going to do Q&A for the next little bit. And when we do Q&A, we'll be writing your names down as we go. At the end of it, we'll start picking out names randomly from the people, and you guys will be eligible to win a prize. So every person that gets a question answered, you'll be eligible to win a prize. Well, not every person, but up to a certain number. We're going to put you in to possibly win a prize. The prizes, basically, one, we'll have some t-shirts to give away, some Jiu-Jitsu t-shirts. We'll have some books and journals. I don't actually sell these books or journals anywhere. They were basically a part of some bonuses that I released with some of the different programs I sold. And so you'll get a chance to win some of those. We'll also be giving away 3 like memberships to the program that Eli and I created. We called it, the name, I think it's kind of fun. We called it Swoll Roll, because the idea is going to be obviously to use some of this hypertrophy style training, this bodybuilding style training, which I really enjoy. It allows me to train more often and not feel so banged up compared to when I used to do heavier style lifting. And again, even like we talked about this yesterday, like you were like, you're probably stronger now than you were before. And I was like, well, not really, because I was thinking of like 1 rep max.
Sure.
But then when we think about, well, if I was actually talking about like a max of say like a higher number of reps, whatever that might be, or my ability to control weight for a longer period of time through a controlled range of motion, that is stronger. Even my ability to like isometrically hold something for a longer period of time is stronger. Mm-hmm. And so that stuff I think has benefited me on the mats, because again, we don't just do one big push in the gym, right? We're doing a lot of times we're having to work these muscles over and over again, and you got to hold things for a longer period of time. Sometimes in jiu-jitsu. So it's been a beneficial thing to me. And so what we did is we combined the program, he made a program for you guys, a 3-day and a 5-day program for lifting, along with some inside look at dieting stuff that I was doing that he shared with me, that I was going through when I was going through my cut. There's also some ideas on cardio for you guys training. There's going to be a planner for your schedules to like sort of schedule out your training. And the last thing that'll be added into it, I'm going to be including a special drilling bonus, because that's really the way that I build most of my cardio up for competitions, is drilling. And that drilling bonus will include a actual video of me and Brandon, my student, training and drilling before the Nogi Worlds. And so we will give 3 people access to that. And then one cool thing we're going to be doing is that for people, the link to the page is up now. If you'd like to purchase it yourself at any time, you can do that now for the early launch. For the people that join during the early launch, which will be going on for this first month, I'm going to select someone, and there will be some details coming out soon about that. I'm going to select someone that joins during this early launch to actually come and train with me and Eli in person. So they'll be able to get on the mats with me. They'll be able to have him go in and sort of critique some stuff with them in the weight room, and it'll be fun. It'll be a fun trip. We'll pay for the flight. We'll pay for the hotel, and then you'll just have to take care of your transportation once you get here. But anybody that gets the program during the early launch and lives in the continental United States, let me preface it with that, you will have a chance to win that. So again, I'm not going to do it for European people, at least not yet. We're going to start with the continental United States, and we'll kind of work from there. So with that said, guys, let's do some Q&A.
And for people just listening, it's jujitsutraining.com/swole.
Yes.
SWOLE.
SOW. Yeah. SWOLE. OLE.
Yeah. Spelling.
So
Chewy, here's if you want to look.
Okay. Yes. Let's jump in.
Start going. I'll start going. And Eli, if you see something.
There was actually a guy on there. He was a physical therapist. And he asked about strength training.
Let me look. Let me pull it up now.
As preventive.
All right. We got something from Albert. And so if we choose people for questions, Chewy, how do you want to tell them to, like if we pick somebody's question?
Once we pick their question, I just need their name. And what I'll do is if you guys get a question picked, we'll call your name out later and let you know that you won something. And if you guys have won something, if we say like, person, won this prize, then basically you'll need to email Eugene at the Jiu-Jitsu podcast at gmail.com.
Yep. I'll put the links. I'll put it down there. It's the Jiu-Jitsu podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah. And just make sure that as we're going through, just to write down whatever their name is.
Yeah. And this question is from Albert Becker. And I'll read this one. He says, physical therapist here. Love the emphasis on diet and weightlifting to complement BJJ growth. What are your thoughts on resistance training for injury prevention compared to for improvement on performance?
Yeah, so strength training is both prehab and rehab.
100% with you.
Yeah.
It's one of the most important things to do for
weak things break. Strong things don't hurt. So a lot of times I've had people come for training and so on like that, and they say, "Well, I've got a bad back." Mm-hmm. And truth be told, they don't have a bad back. They just injured it some time ago, and because of that, they've avoided it. They've not worked it. So anything is going to be, above their work capacity. It's going to be tired. It's going to be weak. So it's going to be painful when they try to work and actually use, those lumbar erectors and that low back and so on. And that's just one example. But yes, said, it's you're reinforcing joints, you're stabilizing the spine, all these things as you get stronger and you build the muscle around these areas. Obviously you're preventing injury from that. And then too, tendons are connected to the end of muscles. So whenever you stress the muscle and you might get the muscle stronger, the tendons get stronger too.
Yep. I think it's, you hit the nail on the head. Exactly right. So when it's one of the best things you can do. I mean, obviously having good mobility, having a proper warm up, proper diet, make sure you're not dehydrated. Those are important things, of course. But then if you're not strength training and to supplement your jiu-jitsu, even do corrective, with physical therapists, we do a lot of corrective exercise, but also beyond corrective exercise, which is important, you want to do strength training and reinforce not only your joints, but also strengthen your tendons. Yeah. And I mean, you have stronger muscles, stronger tendons. I mean, you're going to be able to, at least save yourself or protect yourself, or at least a worst case scenario. Hopefully your injury is not as severe if you do end up getting injured, because injuries do happen. There's no way to avoid injury, but you can hopefully mitigate the risk of getting injured. So,
So here's one from Nono one. It's towards the bottom.
All right.
Nono one.
Yeah, and just again, I put the link down there. So just
I put the link in there so they can click on it as well. Perfect. So Nono one.
Let me see if I can find them here. Towards the bottom, you said, right?
Yeah.
You can read it, and I'll look for it.
These questions are popping up a lot faster. So it's towards the bottom, but probably up a little bit.
Okay.
Keep going. Right there. Go up. There.
Right here.
Yep. Down.
Oh, down. No.
Nono one.
There it is. There it is. I got you.
So this guy asked, how can I maintain flexibility for rolling while still building strength? So this is a thing, right?
Oh yeah.
This is an interesting question, because I thought, kind of similar to you, like first off, I was doing the bodybuilding stuff and I was like, okay, this is probably going to maybe be an hindrance towards my flexibility, right? Which isn't great to begin with. I'm not a naturally flexible person. Everything's kind of tight anyway. So when I started doing the program, one of the things that actually I was surprised about was that my flexibility and movement actually increased in certain muscles. And so one of the things is, so when you think about, a lot of times when we think about bodybuilders, we think of the extreme cases of bodybuilders that are massive and they're so big they can barely move, like a Ronnie Coleman or something, But for most people, when you're doing this stuff, you're building muscles, you're going through full range of motion. And one of the things I told Eugene about this is for instance, when I'm doing a squat, I might go down to the bottom and then hold that position for about 2 seconds at a pause and then come up, trying to get that full range of motion. If I'm doing a chest press with the dumbbells, I'm working on getting that full stretch in the muscle. I'm not worried about just yanking weight up and earlier what Eli said, you're not just trying to load up as much weight as you can and barely move it through that range of motion. You're trying to get that full range of motion. And so one of the things that I noticed was, by doing some of these slower reps, by using a little bit less weight than what I was accustomed to using, I was able to get full range of motion throughout the whole thing. I was getting this deep stretch in some of those muscles. And afterwards, I actually felt better. Like for instance, with my RDLs, I'll take a little pause there and I feel that deep stretch in my hamstring and coming up. And then after doing some of those exercises, my legs will be tired, but I'll get done and actually feel like my legs are more flexible and they feel good and they feel stretched out. And so I haven't had any issues with flexibility after doing the program. Even, again, I'm not a massive guy and I've added a little bit of muscle, but nothing crazy. But it's not something where, again, you're not going to, it's like when women a lot of times will say, I don't like lifting because I get big and bulky. Right. And you're like, honey, no. Because again, it's you're not going to look like some big jacked woman by accident. Right. And for a lot of you guys listening, you're not going to be a Mr. Olympia by doing a bodybuilding style workout. You're going to build muscle potentially. Yes. You're going to help strengthen the muscle and, things like that, but you're not going to have such big arms that you can't move around from this kind of thing. And like I said, in my case, I actually felt better from doing it. And then especially because you're working at a lot of these smaller muscle groups that sometimes don't get much attention, like the adductors and stuff like that, all of a sudden, my knees feel better and everything else. So that was my experience. Yours could obviously be different, but I had no issues with flexibility.
Yeah. I think, do y'all, as far as the program goes, is there some eccentrics, negatives, that included?
Yeah. So there's AYWC Jinx.
All right. Why don't you, let me see. I can maybe, let me see. Why don't you read it for us? And then,
so AYWC Jinx asks, Gordon Ryan says his technique is isometric tension. How can someone train for that? It's actually what Chewy was discussing.
There it is, right there.
Yeah. So it's actually what you were just discussing there. So when you think of like stimulation from the exercises, so we think of the concentric, that's what most people focus on, especially new lifters. They pay mind to the concentric and nothing else. And the concentric is the lifting of the weight. So like on a bicep curl, whenever I come up with the weight, that's the concentric when I bring the weight up into me. Okay. The eccentric would be when I'm lowering the weight. All right. You're going to wear out on the concentric first, because to lift something, you have to apply more force than it actually weighs. To lower it, you apply less than it weighs. And then how slow you lower it is going to be the deciding factor on how much less you're applying. And then an isometric would be simply holding it. With the Swoll Roll program, we've included a lot of tempo work. And with that, you know, slowing down the eccentrics, pauses, so on. And that does carry over, you know, and that's the whole idea, you know, to have that actually complement, you know, and then too, you know, it's so much easier on your joints as well. Because so you're doing a squat and you're doing a 5-second eccentric, you're going to use significantly less weight than you would on a normal squat, you know, especially if you're doing it right, you pause at the bottom, whatever else. You know, so the amount of stress on the muscles is still, you know, a great amount, but the weight is less, so the stress on the joints is lightened. But yeah, that would be my answer to you is really controlling the eccentrics, inserting pauses and so on, can really make a difference there.
Yeah, I think time under tension, right? We talked about that. You're increasing, you're basically the muscles turned on for a longer period of time. You're going to get more tired, more fatigued.
Yeah. And when you think about that from a grappling standpoint or so on, like you get grips and you might be somewhere and you're holding on to something. I mean, it's, you know, you want that muscle to be able to stand to that workload for, you know, an extensive period of time.
And jiu-jitsu requires different things, you know, as far as grip, as far as like isometric. And when people don't know what isometric is, like holding a certain muscle length or position for a prolonged period of time. Concentric is like the shortening, eccentric is the lengthening, isometric is like the holding the position. So if you have like a body lock on somebody, essentially, you're holding that isometric hold, you're kind of squeezing and building that up, building that endurance important, because you're doing that you're not just doing that for 5 seconds, maybe doing it for a minute, 2 minutes, whatever.
Multiple times.
Exactly.
Over and
multiple
over.
Times in a roll, multiple rolls. And, you know, if you have a certain technique you're working or a certain game you play, you're going to,
And that's why like Chewy was saying there, that 1 rep max kind of, I mean, that's great if that's your sport, but that doesn't carry over on the mat quite so well.
Yeah, because you have lots of big, strong guys that can do that. They come in, they putter out. Opposed to having like maybe you have less top end strength, but the strength that you do have, you can maintain for a longer period of time.
Sure.
Here's one from Judo Koala. It's right below Jinx's.
I'll find it.
So here's the question. Judo Koala says, does the program have strength exercises that are useful for guard players? My new gym has some larger folks, and I'm spending more time on the bottom than I used to. So check this out. There's not actually going to be anything that's like crazy specific to jiu-jitsu. Here's the reason why. When we do jiu-jitsu, we do jiu-jitsu. And so my thinking is, and this has been my experience, I'll tell you a quick story. I'll be quick about it. Years ago, I had one of my old coaches wanted to get into lifting. I liked, at the time, I was like lifting, like doing 5x5 type stuff. And he was like, let's lift. And so he did a 5x5. He hated it. He was like, no, we don't want to do this. He had this magazine. He said, no, man, we need to do this. It was like a jiu-jitsu magazine. Yeah. And it was called the Arm Bar, the Unstoppable Arm Bar Defense Workout or something. So I was like, all right, whatever, man. You know, so we're doing this stupid workout and it's like, we're laying down, we've got cable machines, like fighting out like arms, doing holds and all this stuff. And afterwards I was like, oh my God, like a couple days into it, I had the worst tendonitis in my life. I was like 21 or something. And I remember going into the gym, and the gym that I went to, that my one of my mentors ran, my actual mentor was there that day. And like, he sees me kind of nurse my arm. He goes, Nikki, he's an older guy. You know, he's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, Jim, I was like, my arm. And I was telling him it hurts. And I was telling him about what I was doing, whatever. He goes, well, he's like, don't you do enough of that stuff in your jiu-jitsu class? And I was like, well, maybe you're right, Jim, you know? And he's like, maybe you should just do something else when you're in here. And so like for me, and this has been true with a lot of the guys that I've talked to over the years that have like had pretty long careers in jiu-jitsu and less injuries, and we're pretty good. If you build a nice, strong body, then when you go train, you'll find how to use that strength in the place where you're training, right? So the program is based around giving you a strong body from head to toe, we're not focused on this is the guard workout. And the reason being is if we start mimicking stuff that we do in jiu-jitsu and then we do it in the weight room, you run into an issue with you get pattern overload and you get these huge muscular imbalances. The idea for us is basically to help you create a strong body if you follow the program, that then you can do it whether you want to play top, bottom, whatever. And again, by having a strong body that has like strong joints, strong muscles around the joints and everything else, and everything being properly balanced, you'll be less likely to be injured. You'll be stronger. It's all those things. And so there's nothing specific to it about like, we're doing this specifically for this guard position. Now, there are things that could be useful. Like for instance, certain different types of, like, for instance, if you're really tight, if you do like one of the leg presses at a high Y and you really get that deep stretch in the hamstrings, that can be great for people that, need a certain amount of strength when they're in that like hip hinge position when they're getting stacked. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's why we're doing it. So I share that with you guys because I know a lot of times people want the lifting to like benefit this thing, and it will benefit it, but we're not going to mimic our sport in the weight room.
And I'll say a situation where you would mimic is like if you're recovering from an injury and you need to build that baseline strength, you haven't been training, you're not.
But then you can go in the gym and drill.
You can drill, but you can also do some of that supplementary work, some of that strengthening if you need it specifically. If you're working on an elbow injury and you had surgery and you're recovering from an injury, it might be beneficial in that, but you gotta know how to dose it properly, how much to do, when to do it, how often to do it. You don't want to, like Chewy said, you don't want to like go crazy and start like overloading the stuff. You're already training 5 days a week. Now we're working arm bars, these arm bar, very like kind of mimicking exercises. You're getting pattern overload in that instance.
So to touch on that too, aside from pattern overload or even, repetitive motion injury or anything like that, you will change the mechanics of the movement. So like the idea behind strength training is we're adding enough resistance that we have, we're trying to control it. We're trying to squeeze, contract the muscle, all these things we're doing so through a controlled, range and so on and so forth. Sometimes the movements in sports are more explosive. They can be different and so on. Imagine if you have a kid and he can't shoot the ball from the 3-point line to the goal. So you're like, okay, I want to make him stronger so he can do this. So you give him a 20-pound ball. His entire mechanics are going to change. He's no longer going to shoot that ball the same way. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, now he's going to start shot putting it.
Yeah.
So when you give him the other ball back, now
he's going to just launch it.
Yeah. and with no precision whatsoever.
Right.
So, you'll change the mechanics of something and you'll begin to move differently because, you're reiterating a path that isn't applicable outside of that exercise as it would pertain to the actual sport movement.
Well, I think, and I haven't seen the program, but like just general strengthening is so important because you're just kind of, in some ways, with jiu-jitsu, like we said, we have certain positions, certain techniques and movements that we kind of overdo. So building a general, balance to the muscles. Like you said, remember you talked about, your hamstring, being torn, and then you tore your ACL because of it. Probably quite a factor. Like when you have certain muscles overpowering others, you're more susceptible to injuries because you've got more power pulling at different things, and you don't have other muscles being able to decelerate those movements.
So like from anterior side to posterior side, from left to right side. So like you'll see guys a lot of times work mirror muscles, we'll say, chest, arms, so on.
Sure.
And they'll actually be so tight they won't work the posterior side as much. You'll start to see their shoulders
absolutely
kind of turn in
the rounding.
Yeah. And you put yourself in that position, injuries are more apt to occur.
I agree.
Tight, but balance across muscle groups and so on. Like you see people's knees caving in on squat. Well, that's because their abductors are weak.
Yes.
Their abductor can't hold the upper leg, the femur, in place. So they're caving in and they're overloading their quads. Well, why does my knees hurt? Well, because your hips are weak.
Yeah.
So
I agree. And then like why, my chest constantly feels tight. My pecs are so tight. Well, it could be because you're overdoing it, but also maybe you're underdoing the posterior or the shoulder muscle, the muscles around the shoulder blades, the back of the shoulders. You're underdoing those, and you need those. You need to be able to kind of correct those things.
It's like even on bench press, like having a strong back to hold you
so
in
important,
position.
right? I didn't know
that's
that.
Your foundation. Yeah, that's your foundation. Like you're lying
is.
on your back, and that's what's holding your that's what's retracting your scapula. Holding it down, holding
exactly.
you in position so that you can press safely and press a lot.
Yeah, and then if you're not, if you can't keep your scapula, shoulder blades, in the proper position, then your shoulders will round forward and you start getting impingement or you're starting having issues in the front of the shoulders.
Yep.
It's like, why? Well, what's wrong with my shoulders? Well, it's not your shoulder. This is where like basically the point of weakness is, or the point of like susceptibility to injury is.
Mm-hmm.
So here's one. This one's from David Carrillo. He says, I'm a grappler in my 40s. What kind of adjustments have you made for older athletes? Is two day workouts per week too little? Like basically doing two workouts per week too little? This is something we talked about in the program a bit, and I'll let you kind of reiterate over it. But basically, again, like for instance, when Eli gave me a plan originally, and gave me like my number of workouts, there would be some weeks where I would have to, because of either I was busy or because of jiu-jitsu training or something, I would have to extend that period, which again, maybe was a 4-day split over the course of a week, to now I'm doing it over the course of a week and a half or something, because I had to get it in that way. And so I think that, again, with any program, you have to make it adjustments to fit your lifestyle, your need. Because again, more than anything else, I think you're trying to develop a habit that's going to stick with you for a long time. So if you keep doing a 3-day-a-week program, but it's negatively affecting your life in some way, shape, or form, well, that's probably not going to be a good idea. If we can do 2 days a week and you can maintain that for like years to come, well, then 2 days a week is what you should be doing. But for you, like, what kind of adjustments have you made for people that are either in a time crunch and they can get 2 days a week in, or if they're just a bit older?
I mean, first of all, anything's better than nothing.
Sure.
So, getting anything is going to be better than getting in nothing. But as far as like someone who's older or whatever the case may be there, consider your recovery budget. That's not something you hear people talk about a great deal, but you have a budget for recovery. You can only, with as much time as you have in the day, you can only eat so much, you can only sleep so much. So, consider how much recovery you're able to do. Like for myself, when I began training more with Chewy, and I would come up and train with Ben some, if I noticed if I trained, on the mats or was striking with Ben and so on 2-3 times a week, and I still tried to lift 5 days a week, I felt terrible. I couldn't recover from it. My body didn't feel good. My joints stayed beat up. So I reduced the amount of days I was lifting. I adjusted things to get back inside of my budget. Progress and recovery will always run parallel. If recovery starts to drop off, progress will too, regardless, whatever that may be. If you can't recover from your workouts, then you're not going to grow from your workouts. So considering that, so like, let's just say you forced yourself to do 5 days a week, but you can't recover from it. You're going to actually do more harm than good. So doing something that is manageable, that you can recover from, is going to be key. So consider your recovery budget, and just kind of listen to your body.
Mm-hmm. I think so here's a question I think I kind of thought might be good. You get it a lot, and I think there's a lot of maybe a wiggle room with this one, but this one is on hard rolling days, you recommend lifting before or later after rolling?
Me personally, I would rather lift after.
Okay.
And I would want to get a meal in between. Like I would want to rest a bit, get a meal in between. The reason being is like I know what that weight's going to do. I know what that barbell's going to do. I know what that dumbbell's going to do. I know what they're going to feel like. When you're rolling with someone else, it's unpredictable.
That's correct.
Yeah. So from an injury standpoint, if I'm lifting and I'm lifting tired, well, I can adjust the weight. I can adjust the reps. I can go a little bit lighter. I can maybe do something on a machine so I don't have to use a free weight to control that. Mm-hmm. I don't have that option rolling with someone. They're going to weigh what they weigh. They're going to move like they move, so with that being said, I would suggest lifting after, from the sake of, avoiding an injury and being able to, essentially, if you're looking at this, probably jiu-jitsu is your forte, and you're looking to improve there more so mm-hmm. than you're using the lifting to assist with the jiu-jitsu. So I would definitely spend the bigger part of my budget on the lifting or on the jiu-jitsu, mm-hmm. and then use the lifting afterward to accommodate.
Yeah. And for me personally, I try not to even do it on the same day. I feel like
if you can, that would be preferred.
I try not to, because I feel like I can be physically tired, but also mentally tired a little bit, neurologically tired.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Cause if I'm really stressing hard, and the same thing is true if you have a really physically demanding lifting mm-hmm. session. You're not just physically tired. You're like, your brain's a little tired.
Yeah, dude. So your nervous system, your central nervous system can get fatigued. And that's why powerlifters will actually do deload weeks. you might be able to recover physically from lifting that heavy weight, but your nervous system will begin to become will be getting taxed to the point that it can't recover. So that was a great point that you brought up there, because you will.
Yeah, people just think physically. It's not just physical. It's also kind of
Very
mental.
much. Yeah. And if you get that nervous system too beat up, like everything that felt fine now feels heavy. Like nothing feels good in the gym. You're not going to get a good workout. It's not going to feel good at all.
Yeah, yeah. We got more questions, too?
We've got plenty of questions.
We got a lot.
It's like one thing for any of you guys that are getting the program, one thing that I encourage you to do is like, and this is like plastered all throughout the program and in video and everything else, is ease yourself into it. I say that because, again, if you're not used to that type of lifting, maybe some of the exercises are new to you, it is going to provide a different stimulus to you, and it's got to be challenging. Otherwise, it's not going to do anything for you, right? And so I encourage you to ease into it. So like whenever I start a new lifting program in general, I always start off with about the first like 2 weeks is kind of like my adjustment. It gives me a chance to like go a little bit lighter in the exercises, adjust to the program, figure out what all the different lifts are, figure out what my weights are going to need to be. So I put them down on my phone. And then like on that like second or third week, that's when I really kick it up and try to push it. But in the beginning, I start pretty light and try to ease into it. I encourage you guys to do it because you don't want to go in hot, like hard and heavy, push yourself to the max, and then you get so sore from it that you're not able to train the next day or whatever. Whereas if you give yourself a little bit of time to adjust to the stimulus over the course of a couple of weeks, it'll probably be a bit more manageable to you. Just a cautionary warning from me to you that might be useful to you.
All right, we got one, Chew. We got a good one.
What's that?
It's from Icenic Wolf. Does Swoll Roll help you figure out which muscles are imbalanced before you start so that you don't create more imbalance? Example, quad dominance versus hamstring, etc. It can be hard to tell when it's you. What you got there, Eli?
So that would be very much individualized. Now, if you're working with, that would be where you would give feedback to a coach and they would help you with that. But the program itself is it's very well rounded. It's very balanced. So you're going to hit everything, but that's going to be a matter of, honestly, some self-awareness and being honest with yourself. If you look and you say, okay, with my quads, every time I squat, I want to squat narrow and with my heels elevated, and I feel great there. If I go with a wider stance and I engage my adductors, my hip hinge a little bit more, I feel really, really weak. Well, then that's going to be an indicator, so certain things, just be mindful, listen to your body. And again, the program's not going to be, it's the same concept as earlier with, somebody asking about it fitting a guard player and so on. Each person is going to be a bit different, but the program itself is very much well-rounded and you're going to hit everything. So even if you do have some imbalances, by addressing all of those in this program, you're going to get more well-rounded. You're going to get all those attributes are going to level to a point. So.
Yeah. And again, this is going back to lifting, diet, and everything else. If you feel like you maybe have some imbalances, my encouragement is to find someone like Eugene's, find a physical therapist of some sort, and have them do some different exercises and tests with you, because they can figure out, hey, you've got this imbalance here. You're really tight here. This is really weak or whatever. And they can give you some ideas on it that can be customized to you. Because again, we made a generalized program for people in general, but again, you can always hire a coach to give you some more specific stuff, like customized to you. And again, it seems like a lot of times where maybe for some people, it seems like, man, like that seems like kind of an expensive thing, right? I got to pay this guy to show me how to do this thing or whatever. And I don't get like a TV or a car or some material possession for it. But again, think about it being your body. Like, what would you pay to like have your knees feel a little bit better? What would you pay to maybe look a little different, to be a little stronger in some position or whatever it is that you're struggling with? And if the case is like, what is that worth to you? And then you can think about it in that case, right? And so again, for a lot of people, I know sometimes it's hard to like, they just don't think about hiring a coach for those sorts of things. And I think sometimes we don't value our actual body and our health. Like, we'll spend tons of money on a house, tons of money on a car. We'll go through all this different stuff there. But then when it's like, hey, I'm going to pay a coach for a diet, or I'm going to pay a coach to give me a physical assessment, we're like, it's so expensive. It's like, what's more important than your body? What's more important than your health and how you feel? So again, hire a coach if you think you have some bad muscles imbalances. Can't get my words out. But the program, again, it's a nice generalized program that can help strengthen your body.
Yeah, I do agree. Like with the coach, when we talk to elite, like competitors, athletes, people that are really, really good at what they do.
Yeah.
they always have a coach.
Yeah.
They always do. We've talked to so many jiu-jitsu athletes, and like, they will move across the world to train with some person. Look at Felipe Pina, going with Andre Galvao and all these people just to get better and to improve his game. He's already such an incredible athlete to begin with. So
even The Rock has a coach. Like, he has a lifting coach. He has a diet coach. He has people giving. I'm a Rock fan, so he's like my coach does this, that, whatever. He's not doing it by himself.
I think, you think about, if we think about money, and I always think about money. I always do. I do. But here's the thing: when you think about money, how much you save yourself so much, honestly, so much money. It may be a more an investment up front,
sure,
on some of these things, like working with you, virtually or personally, whatever. It's an investment up front, right? But you're investing in yourself, and you're also like, well, now you got to be accountable for that, because you're spending money, number one, and number two, if you're sending your pictures to someone and they're looking at you and they're telling you you're full of crap, you got to take that. So if you want to take it seriously and be accountable, like getting a coach, I mean, you don't have to figure out a lot of stuff. It takes so much of the guesswork out of it. And I think that for me is just huge. Like, if you're very much like able to follow instructions, listen to your body. I think like a Swoll Roll program is perfect, because it gives you the blueprint to do it essentially. But everybody's different. You got to be accountable.
So there's a question from Will Johnson down towards the bottom.
Okay.
And he says, does the program have videos showing how to do the exercises? And so, yes, it does. Now, the reason I wanted to bring that up is because even if you're a somewhat experienced lifter, if you get the program, I would encourage you to watch the videos. And the reason why is because a lot of times I'm getting a bit of an education there. Because like most of the time you watch like a video, like with how to do exercise, it's like, all right, guys, dumbbell lateral raises, take your arm, lift up, back down. That's how you do a dumbbell lateral raise. Mm-hmm. Well, then like Eli's like, well, actually, if you do this, and if there's all these little details, right? So for instance, like we were making a joke, like we're doing curls, like, oh, make sure you do them fancy, because you'll engage more of the bicep. Or if you do this and you have trouble doing this, then do it this way. Or, I mean, there's a lot of different stuff where we're going through the exercises in the program where like I'm asking questions because I'm like, oh, well, I didn't know that. And he's laying down some information, and not on every single exercises, because like some of them are very simple. And they're just like, just do this. But even like how to engage your abdominals in a decline sit-up, how to do that more with your breath.
Yeah.
Didn't know that. And then all of a sudden I've been doing them. I'm like, geez, like I remember the first time I really engaged, I'm like, I've never done it that way. And so we recognize, like in jiu-jitsu, we recognize all the little details that a black belt has. Mm-hmm. Like they can literally come up to you and go like, and they can take your hand, say, hey man, take your hand like 2 inches to the side. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're like, why didn't I think about that? Like that makes Jesus, why didn't I think about like doing that sooner? But it just made this move way better. And then it's the same thing where like you were like making little adjustments. I'm like, why didn't I think about that? That feels so much like better on the muscle, or feels smoother on it. Even like when we were doing on several of the machines. I remember like when we're doing like the leg extension machine or the leg curl, and you were strapping it in a very particular way. And I was like, oh, like that feels great. Like there's no play in it. My knees feel like locked in place, because I'd always like use those machines and there'd always be a little bit of space there. Mm-hmm. And I never really felt like it was like good, and then all of a sudden like we're locking them in, like, oh man, this felt great. And so there's a lot of like little things like that inside those actual how-to videos that could be really useful to you.
And the gentleman there, William, actually is a client of mine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he's doing exceptional.
Very good.
So where you and I work together, obviously, if you have a question on a specific exercise or whatever, and you're doing it, when you send your check-in to me, send a video of that, and we can critique it and assist that too.
This is kind of logistic question from Scott. Any special equipment, gym memberships, a true need for this program?
You're going to need a gym membership.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, like, I know some people like to do the home workouts and stuff like that, and those are perfectly fine. And I encourage you to get a good one if you do. But for this one, I mean, this is like going into like using a lot of different equipment. Now there's always workarounds for stuff, but at some level, you're going to have a decent amount of stuff. I mean, now like back when I started the program with you a couple of years ago, I had to like do some different stuff. Like for instance, we didn't have at the time we didn't have a cable system. And so like, instead of doing like lat pull downs, I would use a wide grip with a pull up, and I would do a band to assist it. And I would just sort of basically do an assisted pull up to do more reps instead of a lat pull down.
Yeah.
And so there's different ways to do it, but you're still gonna have to have a gym at some point.
All right. This is us jiu-jitsu people, and I think everybody in general loves caffeine. So here's a good one. Eli, see if we got this. When it comes to dieting, I can't seem to cut out coffee. Should I be cutting it out, or is there something out there that is a good and healthy substitute?
Why cut it out? I mean, it's not going to hurt you. So if you're trying
I think it depends on the type of coffee you consume and how much, right? If you're putting a bunch of sugar in that thing.
They said coffee.
Just coffee.
They didn't say milkshake frappuccino.
All right.
So,
well, you know, people have like a wide variety of what coffee is. So
coffee is a one ingredient food.
There it is.
So coffee is fine. Now, what you put inside of that coffee can change things up. So, you know, with that being said, it works great. Okay. Coffee is awesome. Here's a little trick too. If you're cutting, coffee and tea can play a big role there too, because warm beverages will make you feel more satiated. So if you're starting to, oh my God, I'm so hungry, and you're drinking a lot of water. A lot of times we'll try to drink more water when we're hungry. If you'll have a warm beverage instead, you'll have that warmth on your stomach and you'll feel a bit more satiated. So sometimes in the evenings I would have some tea when I was in prep or something.
Dude, that's such a great point.
And
I didn't put that together. So like I've got some like reflux and stuff I'm dealing with, right? Yeah. So I try to cut out like eating after a certain amount of time at night. I always I get tea at night just to try to feel like I'm more, and I didn't put it together.
Yeah. So that
I was doing it for a certain reason.
So like in the evenings, maybe consider like decaf coffee or, tea with no steam.
Herbal tea.
I do herbal tea, no caffeine.
And then, or even you can get like a very, very low calorie bone broth.
I was doing the bone broth when one of my cuts because I was almost getting cold.
You
know, I almost felt like
we added that.
Yeah, we added that in, and it was like that was perfect. I'd have like a little cup of bone broth.
It tricks you into thinking you're eating, and then that warmth on your stomach will make you feel a bit more satiated.
That's awesome.
And then too, like the caffeine can help too, because as you are in a deficit and you're burning body fat, energy levels aren't going to be what they were when you were eating in a surplus or eating plenty. So, that caffeine can help you a little bit. And then too, there's some benefits to having caffeine after your workout as well.
Yeah.
Is it so before or after? Like, is there a recommendation that you think? I mean, I know some people say before, some people say after. I mean, what do you think?
So I just like to have a little bit before, and then just to get me through it, because, it's not like a magic pill by any means.
Sure.
But it's the caffeine beforehand gives me a little bit of energy to get through. And then especially once again, if I'm cutting, but if I'm cutting, I would say 60% or more of my carbs for the day are around my workout.
Yeah. Okay.
That's where I need energy. I don't need a ton of fuel to sit and watch TV late at night, So I need those carbs where they're going to help me.
Okay.
So I'm going to have more carbs before, even during and after my workout, even if that means pulling them from later in the day or, lowering them in the morning, whatever that may be, to help me, because that's my goal at hand, and especially if you're a jiu-jitsu athlete and you have a competition coming and we have to lean down over a period of time to make weight, your food is going to be, laid out around that workout, around your jiu-jitsu training, because that's when you need that food. That's when you need to be able to perform, and that begins to be a huge factor. But the caffeine helps.
What's the window like after working out? Is there a window that you want to get some food in you, supplements, all that stuff?
Yeah. So I think sometimes people, there's the whole anabolic
window.
Like sometimes, in all seriousness, sometimes if I work out really, really hard and I feel kind of sick to my stomach, I don't want to eat right then. So, it's not like you're going to lose everything if you don't eat immediately after. So sometimes if I'm in prep or something, and I have some cardio to do after my workout, I'll do my cardio and then I'll eat after that if I feel like it. But as far as that whole thing, you're going to lose all your gains if you don't immediately eat after your workout. I mean, you're
just going to waste away.
Yeah, you're okay.
One of the things you were talking about, since we were talking about caffeine, we talked about this before, I'm a little bit more sensitive to stimulants than say the average person. Yeah. I drink maybe a cup and a half a day at max of coffee, black coffee. And I like actually having it after training for two reasons. One is because when I'm done training and I have that first cup of coffee, usually around usually noon, I'll have one cup of coffee. I'll feel jolted up. I'll feel like I have tons of energy. And when I eat it with my post-workout meal, all of a sudden I'm ready to get after whatever I need to do work-wise. But two, I've noticed, and a friend of mine, she did a study, and they were talking about this, where they found that if you didn't drink caffeine immediately upon waking, if you pushed it back a little bit, it seemed to allow people?
Oh, people are just saying dumb stuff in the comments. So I'm
okay.
just,
Well,
hey,
just like
people are saying dumb stuff, dude. So I'm just gonna
got it.
Politely let them out.
Basically, she was seeing this thing that basically, if you can delay your caffeine by a certain amount of time in the morning, that it seemed to affect sleep and things like that less, where you get less of a crash because it allowed adenosine to build up in the body. I guess is what the later, because there's been a couple studies on it. Because like coffee is like an adenosine inhibitor, right? So like it blocks the adenosine. So then afterwards, like, you know, when you have this rush of adenosine that comes in and tells you you're sleepy. So I guess the theory was that if the adenosine came in a little bit, that then once you had your coffee, and then you later on, when the caffeine began to wear down and more adenosine was coming through, it wasn't such a rush, like a jolt to the body, because your body had some level of adenosine, is I guess the theory. But obviously, if you want to drink your caffeine in the morning, it's perfectly fine. I just like pushing mine after the workout. So
yeah, I'll sometimes split. I'll do like half. Like I'll do like half a cup, and I'll do like half a cup. I'll do like, if I get up pretty early in the morning, I've got an early workout, I'll do like a little bit, and then I'll do after. I like somewhere around noon, after lunch. I like a little bit.
Yeah, and then too, I've noticed that my recovery won't be as good if I have. So how much caffeine I have around the workout is dependent upon when I have my workout. If I'm working out late at night, then I realize, okay, if I have too much caffeine right now, I may not get enough sleep after. So you know, I don't want to. You know, if I'm ruining my sleep for the sake of having caffeine here, then I'm stepping over dollars to pick up dimes. You know, like I'm going to essentially have more issues there. So if it's earlier in the day, then I'll have more caffeine than I would if it was later.
Well, that's something that, like, with jiu-jitsu guys. So like, I think, you know, there's things to be learned from everything. I think it's one thing that bodybuilding sort of understands better than jiu-jitsu people. So in bodybuilding, like I remember talking to a guy years ago, he told me, like, you don't grow in the gym, you grow in the bedroom in the kitchen, right? And so you as a bodybuilder, you understand that, like, okay, I've got to recover, and so if I'm destroying my recovery, then it's not going to help me. And I think jiu-jitsu guys, they don't understand that enough, because like, it's like they will destroy themselves training, tons of overtraining, pushing it too much, and then they get sick and they're not performing well. They're like, I'm at my, you know, I've been training 5 days a week, 2 times a day. I'm really tired. I'm foggy. I'm not mentally sharp because I'm so exhausted, but hey, I'm here. You know, when it's like, just take a couple of days off, or take a day off and let your body rest. You'll come back sharper, and you'll get more from that workout.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes you just have to reset and recover. You know? I think early on, like I mean, that's the fun part, right? The working out part. You know, the recovery is way less sexy. So, you know, people tend to put less of an emphasis on that. But whenever you start to look at all of it as it's, you know, it's the same, and your recovery again dictates your progress. Your progress will always run parallel to that recovery. It's a recovery takes a nosedive, progress goes with it. So
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's that simple.
It's got to be simple. It could be simple recovery stuff. Drink enough water. Are you getting enough sleep? You know,
I
mean,
are you eating enough?
Eating enough, exactly. It doesn't have to be like, I'm gonna go use these compression things. And
I'm using compression things while I'm inside of a sauna, then jumping into an ice bath while I'm like naked in the sun to like get enough vitamin D in. I mean, it's like
getting all the
hack stuff. It's like everybody. It's like
it's a hack for a reason.
Well, it goes back. What did you just say? Like falling over dimes, like falling over dollars, get dimes.
You're stepping over dollars, pick up dimes.
Yeah, it's like, well, it's like, did you eat like food today? Oh well, I ate like a little bit of fast food. Did you go to sleep last night? Well, I stayed up real late playing video games or something.
But I spread eagle and tan my butthole today.
There you go.
Someone
because on Instagram they told me to do it.
That's important, man. What are you talking about?
It's like, you know, it's one of those things where the stuff that you're going to get the most bang for your buck is just typically just the simplest. And that's just it.
It's low hanging fruit. It's low hanging fruit is what it is.
Well, yes and no, because it's easier to take a supplement. It's easier to put in a 20-minute hack than to be focused on doing the right things 24 hours a day that are simple, but still require some discipline to do them. Right. So I could go I go jump in an ice bath now, you know, oh great. I got my ice bath in. Now I'm going to go drink alcohol all night and destroy it. Right. Well, what if I could screw the ice bath and simply say, hey, listen, I'm going to make sure I get to sleep on a reasonable time. I'm not going to drink a bunch of alcohol. I'm going to make sure you eat a reasonable dinner. You know, which one do you think is going to be better for your recovery? You know?
Yeah.
Now, if you get all that other stuff in place, then you can start adding like the little extras, right?
Yeah. Give you a little. So somebody's asking about. Let's look at this real quick.
We'll wrap this one up.
All right. We'll do a couple more questions. Maybe
a couple more questions.
And 2-3 more
then
questions.
We'll do our prizes, then we'll wrap up.
All right. Let's do this one first from Alan. Asked, does it matter when you eat, or is it like the recovery budget? As long as you get enough every day, it works.
So are you familiar with 1 meal a day, OMAD?
1 meal a day.
Yeah,
I didn't know what that was.
Yeah, it's OMAD. So there's OMAD. They've got like acronyms for the different diets.
That's
like
how you know it's for real.
So there's OMAD, which is 1 meal a day.
Like, so for me, again, what is your goals? Like, what are you looking for? Why are you? What are you working out for? What are you doing? If you're just working out to stay in shape or stay feeling good or whatever the case is, then if you feel good with the 1 meal a day, hey, why not? But if you're trying to improve and you have a competition coming up, you want to get stronger, you want to gain muscle, so on, then, you know, taking an approach to your diet that would better serve that goal is definitely going to help you. Like, say you're eating 1 meal a day. Let's just say you eat at 6 o'clock at night, you know, but you're working out at, you know, lunchtime. You're probably not going to feel as great as if you'd had some food beforehand. You know? So that's my thing there is, you know, the best diet for you is the one that is healthy and that you can stick to, period.
There it is.
You know, if you can't stick to it for a long period of time, you're not going to see anything from it. But if you are an athlete and you're looking to, you know, improve your performance in that sport, then, you know, your diet has to match that sport and your training.
All right, cool. Here's another one from Mixed Perfection. We'll start with this one. How well would this program work for someone who is a complete novice in weightlifting, like a first day white belt in the weight room?
It worked very well. Simply because out of the gate, you'll learn to take a very balanced approach to weight training. You know, you'll have a curriculum to stick to. You know, a lot of times, Eugene and I was talking about this earlier, people will mimic what they see and they'll say, oh, that looks cool, I'm going to try that next time. Or this looks cool, I'm going to try this next time. You know, so they'll take a buffet style approach to weight training. They'll come, I'm going to do a little of this, a little of this, a little of this. You know, having a program, having a guideline to stick to, and doing that for an extended period of time, 8 to 12 weeks or so, gives you a chance to learn these movements, to get better at these movements. You know, and if you want to get better at the movement, you have to do it. If you want to squat more, you have to squat more. If you want to bench more, you have to bench more. You know, you don't get better at jiu-jitsu by playing tennis. You do these things and you do them over a prolonged period of time, you know?
Yeah. And there's, in the program, there's 2 different, like programs that are included. There is a 3-day and a 5-day workout, program. So if you're a beginner, like a novice, probably do that 3-day, program. And, if correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of call it like the mechanical phase, right? Because it's focused on really
you're learning the mechanics of the movement, you know, and there's no better way to learn how to move that than moving it slowly.
Yeah. So like a lot of those are like
it very well.
Right. So it's focused on basically controlling the weight. It's not focused on moving things too crazy or anything like that. And will help kind of give you a base. And then later on, if you want to, you can always advance to the 5-day.
Cool. Let's do one more, Chew.
Let's
pick one more and then
do our prizes.
And then we'll do the prizes. Last question. So let's see if there's anything. And Eli, if you see something, what do you think? You got anything?
I mean, there's a couple that we could get into.
I did see one person say that and you don't have to click this one. They said they couldn't drink black coffee. You don't have to. Like, I'll add stevia to it or monk fruit or, you know, some sugar-free syrups to it or whatever. I don't like black coffee either. So
yeah, I like black coffee. Man, I'm telling you right now, you got to get, well, you got to get it. First off, you got to get a good grinder. You got to get a good grinder. You get to make the good beans, get some good beans. Like for instance, like a K-cup, that's garbage. Like, it doesn't taste, it's
quality of your coffee.
It's gross, bro. Yeah. Like, if you get some good beans, like you can get that coffee coming out. You're like, man, I can like taste different flavors in it, opposed to like, it's almost like a beer. Like, you know, old like American beers everybody drank like 30 years ago, they taste like pee. Right? Like, I don't want to drink those, but now you can go get like a really good beer. Or even like you go to you go get like some bourbon. We can go get that like gut rot stuff that comes in the big jug or whatever. It tastes disgusting. You're gonna have to cut it with some Coke or something.
Yeah.
But you can get a good bourbon. Like, man, this is delicious. And so again, if you get some good coffee, like you can, I think it's worthwhile to you can adapt to it. But that said, you can always sweeten it up. You know, cool. If you're not a man, it's okay.
Yeah, well, you know what? Yeah, that's fine because I have to. So I'm gonna put stevia in mine, and I'm gonna be okay with that.
Is that
I'm
like
not that invested?
Is that as far as like sugar, like adding like sweeteners? Is there like a one is monk fruit kind of maybe the best one for you? So I mean, they're all probably something. We talked about this, give and take. all this stuff.
So I did see someone on there. They asked about controlling pain from osteoarthritis and so on. To do so, you want to control inflammation.
Sure.
Whenever you start eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of artificial sweeteners and so on, it's easy to increase inflammation in the body.
Yeah.
So like certain sweeteners are, stevia is natural, monk fruit's natural. So they're better options. That's what I would suggest whenever I'm laying everything out for my clients. If they add something like a sweetener to something, I always suggest stevia or monk fruit first. That's the route that I take with it.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What we want to do, Chew?
All right, guys. So here's the deal.
Let's do it.
I see Nick Wolfe knows Berg grinder with an AeroPress. The AeroPress is good. I'm like most of the time I'm a pour over guy. Yeah. But AeroPress is good. Or a French press. I'm a big French press like that. Anyway,
yeah, I like French press too. All right.
So let's do this. So let's start off. We'll work our way up.
Okay.
So we'll start with some t-shirts here. I'm gonna name off your guys your usernames that you went through, because I don't know your real names. And so we'll do this. So we'll give t-shirt away to starting off with we'll start with Judo Koala.
All right.
So Judo Koala, you will get a t-shirt. So all you need to do to receive your t-shirt is send Eugene an email at the jiu-jitsu-podcast@gmail.com, and you will be able to get a Jiu-Jitsu t-shirt sent to you.
I'll put that in the comments real quick.
Okay. The next t-shirt will go to Mixed Perfection. Again, Mixed Perfection. Go ahead and send your email to Eugene whenever you want to receive the t-shirt. Okay, we'll go and move on to a book or a journal. So you can get your choice. Some of you guys may have them depending on if you bought some of the stuff that I've sold to where I had these bonuses. And so some of you guys may have a book, one of my books or one of the journals, but again, it's a training journal. It's like pretty thick. So you can do it for both training and lifestyle. It's like got some prompts in there, and I've got a bunch of quotes going through it. And then the book is titled Survive. It's like basically it's just some ideas on surviving as a white belt inside the book. So again, you can get one of those. Just let us know which one you want when you email. We'll give Albert. I wrote your name down earlier. Booker. It's BACQ something.
We got it.
Albert. Yeah, got it. All right. So you get you, and then you get a book or a journal, and then we'll give one away to.
It's for a book or a journal on this next one.
All right. And we'll give that away to. There was a Derek earlier. I forgot his name.
There was a Derek. Derek Hernandez.
Derek Hernandez.
All right. There it is.
Theme song.
Get him, Bob.
It's not really a Bob Barker. It's more like, okay, it's kind of like, come on down. That's more like,
wait. What was yours?
I don't know.
What is that?
Yeah, that's not the
That's not, is it?
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's just a noise.
That's
what I do.
It's something. It's one of those like 80s something or others. All right.
Oh, by the way, guys, here's how it works with the let me give you, before we get to the giving away 3 programs, let me tell you how you guys can come train with me and Eli. Well, you guys could obviously come down and train at my gym. That's one way to do it. But assuming that you want to win for us to pay for your flight and stuff, the way that works is we're going to pick someone who is in the continental United States who gets into the Swoll Roll program during the early release, which is going to last until the end of March. At that point, then we'll go through and we will randomly select someone to come to the gym. We'll contact you, obviously, make sure that you're willing to fly and everything else, or willing to come and travel. And then we will pay for the flight, pay for the hotel, and then you can come train with us. We'll also record it on YouTube. So if you'll have to be okay with being on the interwebs, and you'll come down and train with me for a day, have a chance to meet Eli and stuff like that, and then get some training in, be at the gym, see what everything looks like in person if you've never been. And so again, if you get the Swoll Roll program over the course of the next few weeks, then you'll have a chance to win that. Again, being in the continental United States, there'll be more details coming out through email to those of you that are that enter the program. All right, so let's get into the 3 programs. So we'll give some of these away. All right. Here we go. 3 programs to give away. We will give one to so that you want me to see your names right here too. Make sure they match up.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. That's the ones I have. Yeah.
You have something back here too. Okay. All right. So let's give one to.
You got Chewy. Drum roll. I've got some noises I can make on this thing. What you got?
Let's give one to Icenic Wolf.
Icenic Wolf. He's won stuff before too.
Has he?
Yeah, but that's okay. He's
keep on coming back.
Yeah, keep coming back. I remember you. You've won some stuff, which is cool. But thank you for jumping on the podcast on the live. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it down.
Yep.
All right. 2 more. Here, you pick one.
Pick one, Eli.
So if you already got it, then we'll have to pick another one. But
what about this guy?
So AYWC Jinx, you are a winner.
All right, there it is. All right,
and then the last one.
Last one, Chewy.
Last one.
Who's gonna do it? Who's gonna get it?
We're giving it to Will Johnson.
Will Johnson. Awesome.
All right,
great. And if you guys want to pick up the program,
Eugene, I'd like to make a creative note today.
Sure.
I'd like to get some. I'd like to get a sound effect for that thing.
I've got it down here. I got you.
But I want one for like when people win stuff. I want to be able to.
You want me to try to play some stuff?
Yeah, play something real quick.
All right, let me see what I got.
What?
Oh no, that's me talking.
See, it's just. Well, that's just.
What about this one?
You hyped that up a lot for what it actually turned out to be.
Gotta give him some like magical slippers.
That one was okay.
Y'all like that one?
That one wasn't bad.
I'll make it. I only got 4. We can create them right now.
But we got to do a different one. I mean, we got
tell us a dad joke, Chewy, real quick.
Oh, I don't have one on me right now.
There it is.
All right, that's enough. So
all right,
at that point, guys, I think we reached the 2-hour mark, and
we just did actually. It's perfect.
We're done. So so guys, thank you so much for joining. Again, if you guys want to, I'll put his stuff in here real quick for you. If you guys want to follow Eli, you can follow him over on Instagram. Eli, what's your Instagram?
Eli Coffey _ ELICOFFEY _.
All right. And I'm gonna copy his little URL right here, and you guys can follow him.
And then my coaching page is Coach Eli Coffey.
So it's Eli _Coffey. Did I get it right? Nope.
I got
the
it.
Underscores.
I just posted it in there.
For some reason,
cool.
that's the only way I could do it.
Yeah. All so right there. So
very cool.
So I put his thing in the link if you guys want to, or in the chat there. So if you guys want to follow him, please do. And again, you can check with them. So again, if you guys have any more questions about the program, you can start sending them to me by email or through Instagram and stuff like that. If not, the page that we linked to earlier, the Swoll program, you guys can go there. That'll answer probably most of your questions. And again, if you guys do join the program, there's going to be a bunch of video updates, because during the early release, what we're going to be doing is essentially the people that are getting in there. It always works this way. It's like a technique. If I do a technique, people ask questions I didn't expect. They have problems that I wasn't thinking about. And so with the programs there, you're going to have access to it afterwards. I imagine you're probably going to have questions, maybe some things you're struggling with, and we'll have some different methods of basically connecting with you guys, taking your feedback in, and then making some updates to the program to try to help you guys out. And then later on, it'll be sort of released to a sort of a larger audience, but you guys kind of get to be on the cutting room floor with it. And so, again, if you guys get in there, you'll be a part of that as the early release. So guys, with that said, again, big thanks to our sponsors for helping make the podcast happen. Charlotte's Web, you can check them out at charlottesweb.com. Promo code is Jiu-Jitsu20 for 20% off. Again, I like taking it at nighttime as part of my recovery routine, but I encourage everyone to try it for like 30 days, see what you get from it. Try it yourself. EpicRollBJJ.com. If you guys want to check out my buddy Matt, he has a cool company called Epic Roll, makes a lot of cool jiu-jitsu gear, apparel, things like that, everything from cool t-shirts to gis to rash guards, shorts, the whole thing. Check out his website at epicrollbjj.com. And if you buy something, use the promo code Jiu-Jitsu to support the podcast and to get a discount. Also, not thanks to anyone, but if you guys want to support us directly, you can do so by going to the Patreon at patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Upon joining, you'll get access to some exclusive content that we put up with every guest that we've ever had over the course of like 3 years, along with some different exclusive things like rolling, narrated rolls, match breakdowns, things like that.
We talked to Eli for about 20 minutes before the podcast started, so we got some stuff there.
We did
some fun chatting and just kind of some behind the scenes there.
That's it. And then last but not least, guys, if you want to get my daily email, you can do so by going to my website at chewjitsu.net/join, JOIN. Upon joining, you'll get access to 3 free ebooks that I give away. One is on drilling, one's on game plan design, and one is also on some at-home ideas for training and for studying jiu-jitsu. Then once you join that, you'll get my daily email. And if you want to unsubscribe at any point, you can do that by pressing one button that's in every single email. But if not, you can join the thousands of people that enjoy reading them every day. And so check it out. And so, guys, with that said, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate you guys. And we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Eli. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, sir.